Meyer backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Trying to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in, 365 Sports. Smokey is on a little vacay for the rest of the week, and that means that Craig and I are now here alone, which I think we were last Friday anyway. So you know, not much is different, but some stuff to get to. I'm not going to say a lot. Like, I don't want to lie. Like, I'm not trying to set us up for failure or anything. I just don't want to be like a ton to get to. And then we kind of race to this first part. And then like, it doesn't feel like a ton. We've got things to get to. I want to set reasonable expectations, Craig.
Well, yeah, you're really firing everybody up. There's not much. So,
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. We have some really great guests today. And we have topics. I just, I don't want to make them like ready for all you can eat. And then all of a sudden we run out of food. I don't want to do that. I know how disappointed I can get when that happens. No, great show lined up for you today. And we'll start off getting into the stack here. Navy has hired a new athletic director. Michael Kelly from USF. I thought this was kind of an interesting hire, but his father is a Naval Academy grad. He is a DMV, like he's from that area of DC and Maryland and Virginia and all that. He's wanted to go back up there, and he's done amazing things. We actually had him on the show one time after they announced their on-campus stadium plans. He's done some amazing things for the USF's football program, in particular, getting an on-campus stadium ready to go, like all the things they're going to be doing. It looks like a lazy river on the rendering, but there's like a river around it. It's really cool. And getting them into a stadium that they'll be able to fill up. They are, kind of that right there, trying to make moves in the American Conference, and good for them. But he is now off to Navy, which is it's a lateral move, Craig. I don't know, but it's a move he wanted to make. An interesting challenge, like a completely different challenge at Navy than it is at USF.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes some sense because he's got the background there, as you mentioned. I mean, with his father, the fact he grew up in the D.C. area, his father being a Naval Academy guy. So, I mean, there's at least some tie-in that makes it make some sense of it not being completely out of the blue. He'd been at USF since 2018. I mean, athletic directors aren't really meant to be at a place for 10, 20 years. They're kind of a nomadic people. I think a lot of the time, especially if you're not just at some upper elite institution where why would you go anywhere else? Because you have the best of everything. USF, very much a school that's in flux, but with a lot of future promise based on the investments they've made. And I know it depends on what circle you want to dive into. Do you want to dive into people who want to make fun of the fact of like, oh, he was trying to build this stadium and now he's bolting on you, and whether that's really the true way to look at it or not? Do you want to look at it from the USF fan perspective where they're like, hey, thanks for everything you did to get us to this point, but now we need to get somebody to get us over the hump. We need somebody to get us into the P4. I think you can get all sorts of varied opinions on social media on anything, including this move right here. So it makes sense for him because of the Navy tie-in, like we said at the very beginning. I don't know what led to it being now. I guess we'll have to see an interview with him, especially when USF is in a position where there's just a lot of plates that are in the air, but it seems to be a good hire on paper for Navy. They're certainly not going to be pushing him to get them into a power conference anytime soon because they know who they are. And maybe that's what's exciting about that job for him, as well as it's not so much of a what does the future hold and where are we going and all of that as it is with the Bulls at the moment. When you check in on them, there's very much an excitement about what all is possible, but also very much an uncertainty about what the future holds. I think at Navy, you kind of know what's what. Like some things may change. Like, hey, maybe you don't have Army, Navy all to yourself anymore. That could be something that changes. Mm-hmm. Conferences change constantly around you. But you are one of the few schools that's not in this, like, we've got to make money and we've got to, like, get to this and we got to get our AQs and we've got to get, they're just kind of there and happy to be there. And certainly they want to be as competitive as possible. But it does feel like a different beast, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. The challenges of USF versus Navy. So maybe that's appealing. I'm just trying to think it out on my own outside of just the typical somebody wants to do something different and he's got a tie-in, so it makes sense to go there.
Yeah. I think that making a military academy more relevant or maintaining at least their level of relevance in the way that everything's changing, and they can't, like, they are the only schools that have restrictions on them that nobody else does. Like, you can't have NIL deals there because you could, all of a sudden get one from a foreign power or whatever, and all these things that they are limited on compared to everybody else. So I think that's a completely different set of challenges. And also, if you go to military academy and stay there the entire time, you're called to do something that's different than everybody else. So maintaining all that, like making sure that is still a popular place to go for athletes, like that is a completely different challenge than USF. Like, it's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different job other than you're just in the same
you have the same title.
The same title, and you're in the same sphere, but not really, because it is different parts of the sphere. But yeah, I mean, I don't know and won't pretend to know and won't sit there and go, oh, I got a source down in Tampa. I don't, even though I got family there. But based on the reactions that I've seen, there's plenty of USF people that are wishing him well, thanking him for the job he did. There, as you can imagine, some critics and some sour grapes folks who maybe aren't in full agreement, or as I saw a comment before I walked in here today of like, we suck in football in that stadium and blah, blah, so there was a little bit of a mixed reaction, but mostly I saw it was positive. So good luck to him. I'm sure we'll hear more on why he made that specific move. And now USF in a very interesting position in their university's athletics history, now looking to go hire somebody who they hope will be able to push them higher and get them into a power conference. That's still the goal. And we'll finish off this stadium and do whatever else needs to be done around there to put them where they feel that they need to be. And how realistic all of that is, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's out there, as you know. So, no, I don't think they're going to the Big Ten, but I've seen a lot of people say that. I don't think they're going to the SEC. I really haven't seen that, but I have seen the Big Ten thing more than once, enough to acknowledge it. And obviously the Big 12 has been talked about before with them, and they've even been looked at for the conference. But those are the kinds of things that you're going to be walking into if you are the next athletic director at USF, is affiliation and where you are in the grand scheme of things.
I would say that the ACC and Big 12 make more sense than any of the other conferences for them if they're going to get there, just because of the relative size of the school and their, like what the, kind of the MO of either conference is. For example, if you lose Florida State and you're the ACC, do you, go replace Tallahassee with Tampa? If you can.
Then we go down a slippery slope of market sizes and all this stuff
So,
that half the time I don't know if it's even true or not. I mean, to be honest with you.
Market size is that's one of those things that's nice to have.
It was great in 1986 or something.
But it's nice to have. I wouldn't say no. If somebody told me that, even if if somebody told me hey, Norman is going to outgrow even Oklahoma City 30 minutes away from it, and I'm an OU fan, and it's going to be a place that people want to go because it's a cool place to be, I'd be yeah, sure, I'll take that. And I mean, but ultimately, market size is only, to me, comes into play when you have a coach that can capitalize on keeping those good players that you have access to. For example, if you're in Houston, if you're Willie Fritz, the market size only helps you if you're good at keeping the kids in Houston. Otherwise, it doesn't matter, right? It's nice you have that potential advantage, but it's not guaranteed.
Yeah, you've fallen down the slope now, Paul. You're defending market size. And exactly what I just said.
All I'm saying is I'm not trying to defend it.
But you're getting into the market size discussion. Yeah,
exactly.
Which is
again, it doesn't you've gotten people who can get people to Manhattan, Kansas, and other little towns. So market size has proven out over the time. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
The only reason it could be a benefit is that if you happen to be in a market with a bunch of good high school football players, if you happen to be good at getting that market to stay there, then it's fine. But if you're not, then it didn't do you any favors. So it's not really a benefit. You're either a good recruiter or you're not. So that's basically it. So yes, I made your point. Market size
you just got right into the whole argument about
doesn't matter.
This is why you just argued why USF is going to be in the Big Ten. You just made the argument that I've seen on Twitter 1,000 times.
No, doesn't matter. Again, you just got to be a recruiter. It doesn't matter if you're in a big market or a little college town.
No, but that's the conversation that you can veer off into, which was my point. And so, that's part of the conversation and the school size and the location and all of that. And so that's a separate deal that AD will now wander into and try to figure out and sort out for them, whoever that person may be. And best believe there is a hunger on the part of a lot of USF fans to get bigger, to get into a new conference, to be a part of the haves and all that. I don't know how realistic that is, but I know that there's a desire for it. So I think that is one of the challenges for whoever that AD will be. But mostly seeing a lot of positives about Mike Kelly and a lot of people who are USF supporters that feel like he left them better than he found them. And that's always the goal, right, for whenever you go into something. So it seems like he did his job in that regard. And so off to the service academies and a different type of stress, but I would imagine a lot less of the stresses than he's been facing at USF in regards to some of the things that I just mentioned that will remain on the Bulls' plate, but will not be so much on the midshipman's radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, sad news, Craig. The Bahamas Bowl, which is attended by tens of people each year. There's more people on the field than are in the stands at the Bahamas Bowl each year. Will not be played in the Bahamas. This is the second time in 3 years it was moved. In 2023, it was played in Charlotte when the stadium in the Bahamas was not available. I think this means that maybe there doesn't need to be a Bahamas Bowl.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, if you can't even hold it in the Bahamas, it kind of defeats the entire purpose and the allure of the bowl game. And now you're going from we're going to go play in the Bahamas to we're going to go play in Charlotte, which I'm sure is a nice city. Haven't been there before, but
really,
yeah,
it's quite beautiful.
Whole allure of the Bahamas Bowl is the location. When I've seen it on TV, it hasn't looked like the best bowl game in the world.
No.
It's looked kind of half-assed, a little bit janky, to be perfectly honest with you. And maybe I just caught him in a bad weather year or something. I don't know, but I remember few years ago being on TV during a show, and I was just like, man, that just looks kind of, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's the best. It's the best bowl atmosphere, right? And so I'm sure it's still fun for the players and probably was a cool trip and all that. But yeah, I don't think this is like anything people will shed a tear over.
No.
We've seen constant bowl changes, constant name changes. This was unique because it was in a unique place, but yeah, if it goes away, I don't think anybody's going to even remember in 5 years from now, unless you played in that game or went there specifically, or you just, you happen to remember that little trivia fact. But beyond that, I mean, yeah, okay, let's move it to Charlotte or wherever and slap a name on it, and that'll be whatever that's going to be, just like a lot of other bowl games.
Yeah. Here are the benefits of the Bahamas Bowl, as far as I can tell. If you are a visitor to the Bahamas Bowl, not a player, you're going to go down to the Bahamas. It's beautiful. And short lines at concession stands. And I'm sure low ticket prices.
Yeah, well, last year they had 4,600 people for Buffalo and Liberty. Had 5,600 the year prior. So the last 2 years they've taken a real dip. They were pulling in 10,000 plus the first several years, but it was never more than 14,000. I mean, they never even cracked 14,000. They'd been doing this since 2014. So there's a 10-year period of time. And for the first, what looks like 6-7 years, well, I guess you had the COVID cancellation. So what would have been the first? I guess that would have been 7 years or so. I can't count. 3, 6, 8, actually. Glad I redid that. First 8 years, they were pulling in 12,000 plus, regularly 13,000. But then these last 2 years, they've had barely 10,000 total, 5,600 and then 4,600 last year. So, yeah, that's a big dip. That's over half the crowd's not there anymore. So I don't know what all factored into that. Didn't follow it closely enough that like maybe there was stadium renovations or whatever there might have been. I don't know. But yeah, it doesn't seem like the attraction was really attracting all that many people anymore. So I could definitely see that going to the wayside and that turning into something else entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see where it goes, or if the bowl, like, here's the thing, the bowl could go away completely and somebody else will just come up with one right away in a different place.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to move to Charlotte, just whatever business in Charlotte or whatever national corporation the sales team contacts that's interested in it. It'll be the whatever Charlotte Bowl. But congratulations to Western Kentucky and Buffalo. If the Bahamas Bowl were to end, you are both undefeated in the greatest Bahamas Bowls champions of all time, both at 2-0.
Okay.
Middle Tennessee, Old Dominion, UAB all went 1-1, and then Old Toledo dragging up the rear 0-2. But yeah, you have I guess that's records. So yeah, there's some other teams that have been dabbled in there as well. But okay, Bahamas Bowl probably not long for this world, it looks like.
All right, next up, Tristan Keys, wide receiver commit to LSU, a 5-star, correct, Garrett?
Yes, he's a 5-star.
He's a 5-star. He has signed a big deal with Adidas. This is you see this in basketball. We've seen it in basketball, especially recently, and they announce these things. Does this fire you up, Garrett, at all?
Not really. I mean, he is a really talented player. He's going to be really good for them.
Is LSU an Adidas school?
Yeah. No, LSU. I'm not sure. No,
Nike.
they're not an Adidas school.
Yeah. So
that's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that. But no, I personally would not give this amount of money to a high school kid. Like, I want to see them prove it if I'm investing in something. That's just me if I was an NIL collective or a program in general or
Adidas.
Yeah. I mean, I just would rather see them prove it on the college level before I'm dishing out this type of money. But you're basing it off of the talent that you're seeing right now. He is dynamic, what he can do. Super elite, 6'3", 185 pounds. He's going to be the next Jamar Chase or the next one to come through there if everything stays in place. But at the same time, I need to see it proven before I'm throwing out this type of money if I was Adidas personally.
Yeah, well, how many TikTok followers does he have?
That I don't know, but
how many
you know how
Instagram
that
followers
works
he
down
has?
there, man. Yeah,
because that counts more than yardage right
Yeah,
now in a lot of ways. So, yeah, maybe if he's popular on social media, they just assume that he will be popular. He will be a big star. I mean, it's signing off of potential as much as what he's done. So, good for him. I mean, this type of thing wouldn't have been allowed, we know, just even a few years ago. And I always kind of fantasy booked in my head of like, well, you know, you're growing up and you're like, well, if I was a college player, like what would I want to wear? You know, if I was an NFL star, like what would I want to be my big sponsor and things like that. So the fact that college kids can now experience that is pretty cool. So yeah, to be an Adidas signee when you're just getting into college is definitely a sign of the times that we are now getting to see that we never got to see before. And so that's great opportunity, great money, obviously. And I don't know about all these market valuations. I mean, I know that takes into account social media and stuff like that. I don't know how much those are accurate or not. But obviously, Adidas, they don't just willy-nilly sign somebody. They probably had their team look into the metrics and all that, and it seemed like a good signing for them and somebody that'll bring us some attention. So good for Tristan Keys, man. That's pretty cool.
All right, Craig, who would your ideal shoe deal be with?
I mean, now it's like Nike's getting unpopular, right? Like for the longest time, it would have been Nike. I still wear Nikes quite often, but I wear other stuff too. I think it probably still be, but I don't know. Like New Balance has got a pretty good crop of signees nowadays, starting with Ohtani. Adidas obviously has got some Mahomes magic rolling with them right now. I like Adidas a lot. I don't know. You know what the answer is? Who's got the most money?
Yeah.
What are you offering me?
Yeah.
But like growing up, I would probably say like, oh, I want to be Nike. Well, Nike was the end all be all. Now it's like, all right, I'll wear Lululemon. What the hell? Like, how much you want to give me? Like, how much gear am I getting for this?
Garrett, what would you be?
Well, I kind of go back and forth with this on shoes every few years, but so I've been on a Adidas swing for the past 3 years, so I'd have to ride with Adidas.
Okay, so here's my problem. I like a bunch of different shoes for a bunch of different reasons. Like I like Brooks running shoes. I also like New Balance. You'll see I'll rock some Nikes. I'll rock some Jordans all the time. I like that. I'm wearing a shoe called Kizik's right now. They're the most comfortable casual shoes I've ever worn in my life. Kizik's not a sponsor, but you should be, damn it. But yeah, I mean, they're great. So I don't know. Like I could easily be had by any of them.
The one I would not go for is Under Armour. I've never been a big Under Armour fan for whatever reason. I would not go with them.
Yeah. So
I want to welcome in our newest sponsor, Under Armour. Their shoes are comfortable, and I love to wear them. I've actually never worn a pair of Under Armour shoes. I've got a few shirts that are older now, but they're comfortable. It's just that everybody else followed suit and did their own version of Under Armour, and it didn't remain as unique because Nike started doing dry fit, and Adidas probably did whatever they did, and so on and so forth. And then you got even beyond that, like I know I got like Under Armour version, but like their Carhartt, you know, for when I was doing sidelines in bad weather and stuff. So yeah, that market kind of caught up to them when it was like, ooh, what is this fabric and what is? So yeah, I don't know. That'd probably be lower on my list. But hey, if they want to do what they did a few years ago, which they're not doing anymore, and they want to go out and spend gobs and gobs of money to have like the best lineup, then which is what like it looks like New Balance is basically doing now. They got like Ohtani and all sorts of people. Then sure, I'd sign with Under Armour if they're like, here's $5 million. Okay, I'll wear it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I had a preference, it would probably be the highest bidder now, honestly. Yeah.
They got Cooper Flag, which is going to really piss off Nico Harrison. But
yeah,
since he's a Nike loyalist, and as he should be, he worked there a very long time. All right, this is a couple of back-to-back legal stories, real quick. But a new class action lawsuit in California challenges the NIL and transfer restrictions imposed by the state's high school sports federation. It's the logical next step after the reforms inaugurated by successful antitrust litigation on the collegiate level. So basically, to explain this in layman's terms, and this is from our good friend Amanda Kristovich, California, there are athletes in California that would like to be able to transfer and go to schools based on NIL deals they could get, which I will tell you, there to me is nothing dumber than giving a high school kid NIL. Nothing dumber. But people will do it, and people have done it, and pretty much every state in the country has some version of the same rule, which is you cannot transfer high schools for athletic reasons. And I used to be of the opinion, I was on the other side of this. My mind has changed, which is possible, America. My mind has changed on this. I used to think there's no reason you can tell me not to go somewhere for whatever reason. I have come over to not the complete other side, but I'm on the side of like, there's got to be in high schools some way to restrict this, because like you want to talk about a chasm between things in the way that stuff is done in colleges comparatively, like high school, like going one high school to another, depending on where you are in an area, can just be complete gap in resources and different things, and would completely gut poor high schools and poor areas if they did, and would be bad for the overall level of competition all the way together. That being said, I'm an American and I believe in freedom of movement for whatever reason I decide to. So there's a little gray area here where I'm not so sure how I feel about it, but I do think that the juice maybe is not worth the squeeze if it would come to just opening the door, Craig.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of parts of this. I think just in general, I think it kind of sucks that we're going to get this further commercialization of yet another thing. And I know it's already somewhat commercialized, but now it's just going to be that much more of the doors opening, I guess is the right word, to more business in the high school ranks. And I like it for the athletes and the families. I just don't know how honestly it's going to be applied a lot of the time. You know what I mean? Like how much of this is the Georgia booster or the Michigan State booster or the whoever is, you know, the local car dealer and they got the 5-star quarterback. And I know all that stuff's kind of going on now, but you know, you wonder how much of that will be the NIL and how much of it will just be, you know, as intended, which is not much of what it actually is even now, just a couple years later. But, you know, there's a lot of talk, obviously, about public schools, right, and about school choice. And especially in this state, I can't speak to everywhere else, but I know it's a big topic in this state. So there's that element of it, and I can understand people not being satisfied with their local schools and wanting something better for their kids and wanting to have the choice and the movement. And that should apply to everybody. So I'm not like against this in any way because I don't think there's any argument against it. So, I mean, you should have freedom of movement. You should be able to choose where you go to school, and you should be able to accept money if you're able to accept money for your athletic talents or your musical talents or your acting talents or whatever. So all that I'm with. The part that is like the negative to me is I just think that the ripping of the community further sucks. Like I think, unfortunately, over the last few years in Texas high school football, I've started to feel like this is already occurring at a pretty rapid rate. The more and more that I see certain schools in DFW who just so happen to be in the state championship every year, and they are hotbeds of talent as they are, but it's really convenient that they also bring in like 3 or 4 guys a year who are from completely random places that have a grandma that was from there.
Like Lacey Lakeview.
Yeah, and like these things are already going on. Like the transfers of kids at the high school level. I've seen it more in the last few years than ever before in football. I mean, guys are bouncing around all over the place, and they're also going to like the same 2 or 3 schools, it seems like every time. They're going to Duncanville. They're going to DeSoto. And just who happens to be in the championships every single year? It's them. And they already have the talent, like they're homegrown as it is, but then they're adding other guys that come from outside. So this has already been kind of, you know, going on in high school where it's not just like this old school of like the way that it used to be, I guess is what I'm getting at. So it's already been changing in that regard more and more that I've seen, and especially up close next to it. And look, the schools that I've covered have benefited from it just as much as they've been hurt by it. They lose a guy to Dallas Skyline randomly. They go get a quarterback from Waco Connolly or something, you know? So that's been kind of discouraging to see. And this, I think, will just propel that even further where it's like there's no tie to the city. And I'm just thankful. Like, I'm sure they won't notice because they won't know any better. But that's just something that I know that they won't ever understand. Younger people that are going through this, that I will at least appreciate that community feel that was still there. And I know that will still be in place in some places, but I do feel like we're losing a lot of that, which is all the school choice and now, you know, introduce NIL and movement and all of that. So I think the community aspect's getting ripped a little bit, but I also understand like some schools aren't good enough, you know, some opportunities aren't good enough, and you got to do what's best for you at the end of the day, I guess.
And part of this problem comes from the state governments, and whether you're in a Republican state or a Democratic state, nobody does it right when it comes to public education. Like there's this weird, like,
I think we could agree we could all be better across the board.
We could be better across the board. And so like, it's different in different places. Like the one thing that doesn't make sense to me is like everybody, like when big budget cuts come, always education's in it, right? For whatever reason, education's in it. And that should be one of the things that's untouchable. Like it should be like we treat the Pentagon. Like you should not touch the education budget. In fact, you should pour so much money into education that like people are silly with it no matter where they live. Like you shouldn't have to worry about like, hey, do teachers make enough money or all these things? It's the most valuable thing we have is education. And nobody in this country does it right at the government level. I mean, like it's really like whatever you want to say. And so that's when things like this happen where you might have a legitimate reason of saying like, look, I live in this town. They don't get any funding. The school's really bad. They can't keep teachers. They can't keep coaches. My kid's good. I'm going to go somewhere. I completely understand that. That is out of their, they can't just go up to the legislature in their state and go, hey, we're getting screwed here. You know, and they're like, oh, well, we'll reallocate. That's just not how it works. And so, yeah, I get it. That's why I just wish there was some sort of middle ground, and maybe wouldn't be a problem if these schools were funded correctly. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen in this country.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say they would use the funds correctly? I've seen a lot of teachers that misappropriate or principals or whatever. So that's a whole different topic. But I mean, what I'm getting at is I'm getting out of the high school game for the first time in like 20 years. I had my fill. I've done my duty. It's time to retire from that. But I did notice the last 2 or 3 years, I just started to feel like a switch in kind of things, the way they were going, and get into the point of the story, the NIL part of it. I just feel like that'll probably further encourage more change and more turnover and more of like these flexible rosters rather than the kid that you played baseball with in second grade. You're still playing high school football with them 10 years later as seniors in high school. That's still going to be the case in most places, but I think there's going to be a lot of differences in movement than we'd ever seen before, and NIL will only further fuel that, I guess, is the point I'm trying to get to.
Absolutely. Oregon also has an NIL law that is on its way into, maybe getting passed. This from Midwinter. In addition to allowing schools to directly pay athletes and shielding athlete contracts from public disclosure, the bill also removes language from the law that prohibits athletes from promoting sin businesses, which would be, booze, weed in Oregon, I'm guessing, sex stuff.
So what, are we going to have the Oregon running back saying like, hey, man, go to Sleepy Joe's smoke shop?
Yeah.
We're encouraged. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I mean, like,
if anybody was going to do it, it'd be Oregon, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
People in Portland voted on this, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Like, hey, after the game, I get blackout drunk on, this local
Oregon's finest ale or whatever. Yeah.
I
don't know. That seems a little weird, but okay.
Don't be a fool. Wrap your tool, Trojan condoms. Like those kind of things. Believe me, as a popular college athlete, I'm fending them off. The last thing I want to do is be the next Sean Kemp. That's why I always, so I mean, I guess so. I mean, like, but
the thing about this, man, I hate the legal stuff. I understand it's got its place. I mean, it's the rules. So, I mean, it has its place. Certainly it's the rules, but like, why is there still so much, shielding athlete contracts from public disclosure? Like, I get like why you would want that for protection purposes, but it also just feels like you're still trying to be shady about it all. Like, why are you still trying to be shady about it?
The sin businesses thing is going to get more attention than that because people will see that and be like, oh, well, now a guy's like, he's going to be able to promote a beer and
we got to remember too, like when some things like that get pushed back on, and I'd be more than happy to hear an argument about like there's a totally different aspect to that of why that matters. Like, for example, like protecting people, I can totally understand that, but I don't feel like that's what that's for.
No.
I feel like that's absolutely to cover for the fact that it's not really NIL and I paid this kid to come play at my academy or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you get on like, and I know I hate to use social media as an example, but like I see it with like Darren Heitner a lot. Like you push back on certain things, and it just I just wonder if like, why are you trying to still hide things? Like if it's all on the up and up and it's all like good and whatever, like why are we still shielding stuff? I don't understand that part of it.
Here's the other thing. Like, well, NIL is privately funded through, donor groups and collectives. But if you're going to allow a school that is the university of something,
right,
Oregon, to pay players directly, as a taxpayer in Oregon, where if I lived there, I'd pay a crap load of taxes. I should have the right to know how much the quarterback's getting, and
I don't even
whether
really,
I care or not about that.
Yeah.
But that should not be top secret. Again,
I'm all for preserving whatever you need to keep people safe. And whatever, that's fine. So if that's what that's intended for, then that's cool, and I totally am on board with that. But I do feel like there's still a lot of shady practices that are being portrayed as, oh, no, this is just for protection, or this is for this or that. And I'm like, no, I think y'all are just still trying to find ways to be shady. Like, that's just what it feels like. And you know what? It's college football, so I'd be willing to bet good money that's exactly what you're doing. So, yeah, that's interesting, but I don't know. Maybe we'll hear more as to why that's such a sound thing to have as part of this. But the sin businesses, that's certainly a headline grabber, and good luck to the Oregon wide receiver who gets the big weird deal that we'll hear about at some point from like the Portland porn shop or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's doing beer and you're a 22-year-old or 21-year-old. Like, I don't see much of a problem with that, but that is a different world than the one we grew up in. That's for sure. And so just something else that's different.
Well, I mean, look, professional athletes have been prohibited from
That's what I mean. Yeah.
So
now it's not okay for them, but it's going to be okay for like the 21-year-old for the alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm 21. Portland's finest brewery is,
I'm not trying to take away,
but
not trying to take away the opportunity. It's just bizarre when you have a certain set of rules for pros, and we're trying to have so many more less rules for the guys who are not the pros, even though they're basically pros now.
And those things are collectively bargained. The people agree to that. Like, like if you're a baseball player and you want to, endorse chewing tobacco, well, you better retire then, because they're not going to let you endorse it anymore. Like, it's in the collective bargaining agreement. You, as a member of that union, agreed to that. Let's take a break right here. We'll finish up with the next topics, and we can leave that other one that can float for some time that we got to fill before. But Tim Brando on 9 games, Mark Schipper on some ESPN nonsense, and a couple more things when we come back. This is 365 Sports.
With Employee Pricing Plus at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home a new Chrysler Dodge Jeep or Ram with smoking hot deals that slay the competition. Only at Allen Samuels. You're going to love it here.
Come by. Let's be friends. I'll never get used to this.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture, or what you choose to grow. At Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
The Jeep Celebration event is on at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get the luxurious 2024 Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a huge $13,000 dealer discount plus 0% financing. Or take home a 2024 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, $15,000 off or 0% for 72 months. Plus, drive a 2025 Jeep Compass for just $25,900. Big savings, legendary Jeeps. Only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports at 4 o'clock. Ralph Russo of The Athletic, 4:30 Tyler Budge, and at 5:30 John McClain will join us today. And
Did Garrett have more on that Adidas story?
Yeah, so right now it's coming out that as far as Tristan Keys goes, that 5 other programs are still in the mix for him. He is committed to LSU right now. On3 has it out that it is Tennessee, Texas A&M, Auburn, and Alabama who are also in the mix for him. With it being an Adidas contract, you might want to look into seeing which teams are already branded
A&M.
with Adidas. Yeah, branded with Adidas. So something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, A&M is. I don't know about the.
I think
the rest
LSU's Nike.
LSU's Nike.
I believe LSU's Nike. Yeah.
No, I know LSU's
Yeah.
Nike. Yeah. Tennessee, I think they flopped around. They were Adidas at one point, but I think they might be back to Nike. But I'm not positive on that.
Yeah. I think
They pay far less
Bam-
attention to those types of things
Yeah.
than
Right.
they used to.
Yeah, Bama is Nike.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think-
Bama's definitely Nike.
Yeah, I
like,
think Bama's Jordan brand, as a matter of fact. They might be. Yeah, so
no, they're not.
they're not.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless they've changed recently. But no, they were not part of that group just yet. But that's something that could certainly come into play. You end up at Adidas school, but either way, you can go and shoot all the commercials you want to if you're an Adidas athlete playing at a Nike school or an Under Armour school or whatever. You just can't probably, depending on their rules, you got to cover up your cleats, do that type of thing. And you couldn't be out there with like brazen Adidas logos on Nike uniforms. That's a no-no.
So one interesting thing here is if you go and look, Tommy Loy of 247 has Keys as Tennessee being the front runner for him to ultimately into. And if you go and look, the Knoxville Sentinel has a thing out saying that the Nike contract expires in 2025, which is opening up negotiations for Adidas to possibly come in 2026. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, well, always some business being done.
Yes.
Yeah, there certainly is.
Now look at it. May 15th, Tennessee's contract expires in 2026. Their mulling brand options could switch to Adidas. I know they were Adidas when I was like in the Peyton Manning years and stuff. They were Adidas, but they've been Nike here as of late. So, well, I mean that'll be a cool thing. Getting to the point of the whole story, Tristan Keys, if you get a sponsorship deal as a high school athlete. I mean, what a time to be alive for Tristan Keys, right? You got brands throwing their money at you. You got all these schools lining up to get you. Crazy, but fun, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. Tim Brando, friend of the show and firebrand. I don't think he'd mind me calling him a firebrand. I criticized the SEC for avoiding a 9-game schedule and called out Paul Feinbaum for a soft interview with Greg Sankey. I later apologized, but my show appearances stopped. Bottom line, every CFB conference must play the same number of league games. He said that on our show many times on the SEC scheduling controversy. And Craig, we've kind of made our positions clear. I would prefer 9 for everybody, but again, like this is one of those things that all the conferences need to get in a room and go, okay, who wants 8? Who wants 9? Let's vote. Whoever wins, that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wonder if he could go back in time because I've seen him mention the Feinbaum appearances now like 3 or 4 times. I think that bothers him still. And Tim's our buddy, but I think that bothers him. And then again, he's a man with opinions, so I'm just as confident. I'm like 50-50. He probably still would have said what he said, knowing that he wouldn't appear on Feinbaum anymore. I don't know. I don't know what the trade-off looks like in his head, but clearly that's stuck with him, and clearly that's stuck with Feinbaum as well. So whatever. But in the whole thing, the whole reason we're in limbo right now is because we can't agree on the same number of conference games, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Ten says, hey, we'll do this if you play the same number of conference games. And the SEC says, well, what about this other model? And that's where we are. So, yeah, it's really as simple as we can go a specific direction if the SEC will decide to play the same number of games. And the ACC as well, because I'm tired of this crap not rolling downhill, like it just stopping at the top two leagues, and it doesn't roll down when it needs to the other leagues. And so the ACC just as guilty. They play one less game than everybody else. Just on the overall point, I'm in agreement with them. I understand the scheduling stance of the SEC. I can understand that they put out their propaganda, and that's not even a knock, folks. That was literally propaganda they put out last week. Like, that is propaganda. And so, that's going to be out there, and they're going to be shaping the narrative, and they're also shaping the playoff, but they've got to agree with the Big Ten. And that's the one thing they don't agree on right now, specifically, is the number of conference games. So I'm with Tim on this. I think everybody should play the same. Now, that should also come into play where, yes, strength of schedule should then be factored in at the end of the year. And if you're in the SEC and you play 9 league games, that should probably count a little bit more. I will go back to, okay, but how much are we talking? Like, does everybody have a built-in, like, extra 100 bonus points just for simply existing in the SEC? And every schedule's treated as though they all played Bama, Georgia, Texas, and South Carolina 4 weeks in a row?
No, it shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't. So there's got to be a way to determine who actually played a stronger schedule, not just, I'm in the SEC, my schedule's stronger than your Big 12 schedule, because that's not necessarily always going to be the case. And the degree to which it's more difficult would be different on a team-by-team basis. It's not all just the same. So that needs to be figured out. That strength of schedule component, which is a lot of what the conversation is figuring out strength of schedule. And once that gets figured out and they can account for it, then, yeah, everybody needs to play the same number of conference games just for cleanliness. Everybody's like, just for it to be uniform across the board. Everybody plays 9. Everybody plays 3 non-cons. And if you want to go and have your Big Ten SEC scheduling arrangement and do something like that, cool. But everybody should play the same number of conference games. I'm tired of people thinking otherwise.
Yeah, 2 things. One, the SEC actually has a legit excuse. Like, hey, I don't want to play 9 because every other year that means that if I have Georgia and Texas on my schedule, I could also get LSU, where I didn't have them before, and I'd rather not have to deal with that crap and cost me a playoff spot if those things are not going to be factored in a way that we agree with. So I can understand their argument. Now, sometimes I think, they've got rose-colored glasses when it comes to their league too much, but the ACC's excuse is not that valid. Like, okay, I just picked a random school in the ACC. I picked Pitt. So their 3 non-conference games are West Virginia, which should not go away under any circumstance ever. And the other 2 that they would lose out of in this would either be Duquesne or Central Michigan. So you're telling me that if you took off Duquesne and then threw in who they not playing, I'll just make it easy, Duke. And you put in Duke, who's a good team this year, that's going to make it so much harder for you to be better? I don't think so. I don't. In most every year of the ACC, given their history, and I'm an ACC guy, but either do 9 or convince everybody else, the Big 12 and the Big 10, to go back to 8, which the Big 12 doesn't want to do. The Big 12 wants to play 9. They're going to need to play 9. So I don't know.
They have to play 9. I mean, that's where their strength of schedule comes from in a lot of cases. There's some schools that are playing a tough non-con, but it's not enough to balance it by any means.
And here's the other thing. After the conference shuffle that went on, some teams played 10 conference games because they had non-con scheduled, and they didn't count as conference games, but you still had to stay in your conference for 10 games. And guess what? They were alive. I mean, nothing really bad happened because of that. So I think that, there's a scheduling metric that can be worked out, but the problem is that no one wants to work together on that. Truly, we're going to have Scott Docterman on the show tomorrow. He wrote an article about the Big Ten and their push for AQs. When we talk to Ralph Russo here in a second, his column today was about the SEC and Big Ten, who are supposed to be working together that are now not. I mean,
well, they were all on board together. They were all on board with the automatic qualifiers and that whole setup. And then obviously there was some pushback on that. And part of the pushback was that the Big Ten said, so we're going to do this. The SEC is going to play 9 games, right? And the SEC started going, probably as a result somewhat of the blowback, perhaps not, but just the timing of it was in conjunction with some of that blowback. They said, well, I don't know. This 5-11 suddenly looks kind of good because guess who would probably benefit the most? We would. And so would the Big Ten. But I think certainly the SEC leaving a selection committee to determine 6 spots would feel pretty confident there. No, it would be with 11 spots. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's the whole rub. Like, that's a whole deeper conversation about the gamble by Brett Yormark on going and saying, hey, committee, we're just going to trust that amongst these 11 spots, you're going to give us like 1 or 2 of these bad boys on a regular basis, as opposed to saying, we know we have 2, that no matter what. That's the gamble that he's taking. But yeah, the hang up now is the 9th conference game between the SEC and Big Ten, and the fact the SEC started going the different direction publicly last week with the 5 and then the 11 at large, and the Big Ten's like, what the hell? We are in agreement on the automatic qualifiers, and now you're talking about the other format. But had they agreed to the 9th game, then we'd already be talking about the whole automatic qualifier already being pushed forward, and that being the way we're going to do things from now on. And look, I see both sides of it. I've heard out the arguments on both sides, and I do think that Brett Yormark's taking a big gamble, but I also can appreciate whether it's the right move or not in the long run, saying, you know what, everybody's talking about like how they can basically rig this thing in their favor. Like, we're just going to go play, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may. And you know what? If they do get screwed, it's going to be known that they got screwed. Like, BYU last year was not really the royal screwing that some made it out to be. Like, you can make an argument they got gypped in a way, but it wasn't like blatantly obvious that they had to be in the playoff or it's a farce. That wasn't the case. They were a team on the edge, like a lot of other teams.
I think the best argument they have is if you're going to start arguing for these 3 SEC teams with 3 losses, BYU needs to be included in that discussion too.
Yes, but then you had Sankey who's like pushing Bama into the mix, even though they had an embarrassing loss, and so I don't know how that works out when you're leaving 11 spots up for a committee of people. But, you know, the SEC and I think the Big Ten as well are also trying to change the committee. So I don't know where all that ends up in the long run. But, yeah, that 9th conference game is the big bugaboo, as we'll talk about with Ralph Russo, or the big hang-up between those 2 leagues just fully agreeing and moving on moving on to the next phase of this thing. So that's what needs to be figured out. And then the ACC obviously would need to follow suit some sort of way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's just, and I read Joe Klatt's column today where he's against the 5+11, which basically boils down to it means you put all of it on the committee.
Yes.
Which is not.
Other than your champion.
Yeah. And so you give 11 teams to the committee to pit now. And, I mean, like they've got
versus like what it would have been 2.
Yeah.
But so the committee was picking 2 teams in a 14, right? No, they have 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wait, how many? There have been 12 at-larges, right? Between the 4 Power 4 conferences. So so it had to be a 14 14. So you'd have had either 2 or 4 at-larges being decided by the committee versus the 5-11 where the committee is deciding 11 teams.
Yeah.
And you're hoping that they will not be so biased that they put like the 6th SEC team over a 2nd ACC team or a 2nd Big 12 team or something. And that's what you're having to hope for. And that's the gamble that Yormark's taking.
But I do think
I think if there's something particularly egregious, like there will be backlash to that. I don't think they can just get away with murder and nobody react to it though.
No. And look, we've seen a backlash on there. Like last year, nothing was egregious. Nothing. I mean, the SEC's acting like it was. It wasn't egregious. The year before in the last 14 playoff was egregious. Ridiculously egregious. And
I'm just kidding.
It was I kind of knew you were going to do that. It was ridiculous.
I mean, the quarterback was hurt, Paul. I know they won every game, but the quarterback was hurt. You know?
Yeah. They won essentially 3 games after he broke his leg, but no, they can only win because of him.
But no, last year you had South Carolina who had like a minor argument they could make. Alabama had a minor argument. BYU had a minor argument. Like, you had all those fighting for those last spots, and they didn't all have super convincing great arguments. They had bits and pieces.
My question for what would have been Ole Miss and South Carolina, because here's the deal. If Clemson had lost that game, Clemson was not going to go into the playoff. They stole a bid. Ole Miss still would not have been in. In that scenario, it would have been Alabama that went in. So would Lane Kiffin still be crying about this?
Oh, because it's Lane Kiffin, of course.
Yeah, but he has to understand that there was one bid up for grabs, and Clemson stole it from them, and it wasn't going to him in any circumstance at all. So he was out before it started. And that's where I think you get kind of a disingenuous argument where he's thinking like, oh, we should have been in over this. Or I think he thinks he should have been over Indiana. But
well, too bad for him. He wasn't.
Yeah. So
screw it. What the argument was, because we're way past that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there were those types of things that were ongoing, various schools. I mean, I never considered Ole Miss, so that whole part that you just mentioned is not even in my memory. Now you bring it up, it is again, but I was more focused on the South Carolina run there at the end, and obviously BYU and those schools just shouldn't have lost when they lost or who they lost to, and BYU kind of had their path and they fumbled it there at the end, for example. But I mean that's the debate. You're leaving it in the hands of a committee more than you would otherwise, but the flip side of the coin, and this is where the Big 12 fans are coming in, is you don't want to be relegated to second-class citizenry, which you would be, because you're being told no matter what before the year starts, no matter how good your league may be, no matter how many good teams you might have, no matter what, you're still only getting 2 to start off with, and no matter how down another league might be, because they have more history and more everything, they're going to have double the size, and they're still going to get the benefit of the doubt in the at-larges as well. But you at least limited the at-larges, and you guaranteed yourself 2 spots. Now you're opening it up, 11 spots for a committee, and you're only guaranteed 1 spot. So that's a hell of a gamble, and that's why last week I was just like, I don't know, man. Like, the 2 spots sounds kind of nice, but it's less about that automatics and all that, and I think it's just the perception. That's the driving force for your mark and the fandom. And I think I've seen enough Big 12 fans now to say that pretty confidently, that it's probably a worse draw. Very well may be. But at some point, you got to go out there and earn these spots, and that's up to the teams to go and do that. And then if you get royally screwed over, well, then that'll be made public, and that'll be out there for everybody to see, and there will be ramifications for that. But you got to go make that an issue first. And if you're all sitting there with 3-4 losses, well, then you don't have an argument, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to bet on yourself. That's what they're doing. And we'll see in the long run whether that was the right gamble or not. But as opposed to just going ahead and taking your second-class ticket and saying, well, this is where we are now, they're fighting to try and stay in first class as best they can. And I can understand that, but it is a gamble.
Yeah, and that's where I think, when I read Joe Clattle, I think you're missing that, point of it. It's like...
He doesn't understand that. Yeah. He doesn't understand that.
That's where you're missing the... I get everything you're saying, but the only way that you can fight against that is to take this risk. Yeah. So there's 2 risks involved. One of them, you pretty much risk yourself being relegated for eternity. And one, you risk yourself being sort of relegated by the committee, but
if you don't perform,
but this also allows you to go out and kick some ass.
And the other side of it is, well, how are you going to kick some ass when they've got more money and more this and more that? And it's like, well, that's the damned part of it.
Well, it's one of those things they've got to they've just got to go out and do it, and then the money can come.
Well, tonight we didn't bring it up, but tonight Texas Tech needs to go beat Texas.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to go do things like that. That's how you do it. Is you go and beat Texas, and you invested well, obviously, in your softball program. And that's why you are where you are. So teams are going to have to either invest and perform, just like the other schools that they're complaining about, or they're not going to invest and they're not going to perform, and they're going to have nothing to bitch about because you didn't do your end of the bargain. So the onus is on the schools in this scenario. You could have taken an easier way out, so to speak, but yes, what is lost on Klatt, or he's just dismissing, and I think he's wrong in dismissing it, because I think that's the heart of the argument for the Big 12 fan, is that we get that it's probably the dumb move. Yeah. We get that we're risking losing an automatic playoff spot, but the only way to try to scrape back at all is to go out and do it on our own and try to win. And that's the key heart of the argument. And that's what, if you hear people say the Big 12 is stupid, maybe, but you got to understand where they're coming from is like they know it's a risk. They're taking the risk, and we'll see if it pays off.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Ralph Russo of The Athletic. This is 365 Sports.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back. 365 Sports. Paul and Craig. Smokey's on vacation right now, awaiting the arrival of Ralph Russo of The Athletic. Craig, Texas Tech tonight in softball. We had Texas Tech's coach on yesterday. Would be a huge thing for the Big 12. It really would. And Tech felt they were kind of a piece or two away, and they went and spicked the big bucks on Nigeria Kennedy, and she has been everything that they could have hoped for and more.
Yes, and Texas' team all plays for free and for the love of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's a big night for Texas as well. They've been knocking on the door of this softball national title and watching their arch rival, the Sooners, reel one after the other off like it's the John Wooden UCLA years practically. And they've been right there and obviously fell to Oklahoma last year. And they've been so close they can taste it. So I think that they are in a prime position and really in need of a win. I think to go and then fall to an old Big 12 mate, it's like one thing losing to Oklahoma, it'd be another thing losing to Texas Tech and losing again this close to being crowned the Natty champs. So I think it's huge for their program and, maintaining, I guess, what is now because of what Oklahoma did, an SEC stranglehold on softball along with various other sports. But for Texas Tech, yeah, it's a massive deal. They invested well, and that was well documented. I think Kennedy gets all of the attention, but there are others, obviously, they brought into the fold, and Jerry Glasgow talked a bit about that, and other stories have touched on that as well. So it's not a one-woman show, but she is the star. She is the top ace of that team, and she's an incredibly good player. So I know they met a couple times earlier this year, and I'm just hoping that rather than getting the blowout version of that game that we got, I hope we get the very narrow, close, suspenseful, down to the wire, biting your nails type of game that would really bring this softball season to a dramatic close. I just want to see a competitive, fun game series, as you've got to win 2 out of 3. But, yeah, I'd imagine it's going to be a super festive atmosphere in OKC with those two fan bases, and should be a hell of a game, hopefully a hell of a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Games. I keep saying game. It's just tonight's game 1, but obviously got to win 2.
Yeah, I went to the chiropractor this morning, saw Dr. Myers, a very proud Texas Tech grad, and he's, we talked about it, and he was he's like, this is a chiropractor. He's like, I'm amazed she can pitch as much as she can. I'm like, well, it's a natural motion as opposed to the other thing, but even still, like 300 pitches in 5 days is a lot, no matter what the motion is. And
hey, man, I was introduced to softball by Kat Osterman when she played at Texas, and that's when I learned that, there's no pitch count. I mean, really, there's you just throw the ace out there pretty much every time and let them do their thing. And Kennedy's obviously an all-around great player. And yeah, it'd be a lot more interesting sport if you couldn't do that. If you had to have a rotation of pitchers, but you get that great one, and that could take you a long way.
And look, I've seen a couple teams over the history that have that second, their star is a senior, their second one is a freshman, and they roll, they can roll that other one out when the other one's just tired, and you're still you've got the next one waiting in the wings. So we'll see what the future holds, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that series goes. Garrett, I know, will be hate watching the Stanley Cup tonight.
I will.
How long do you think you'll be able to stay with it?
Oh, I'm watching the whole thing.
Okay.
I'm watching it regardless. Now, I'm probably going to pass out early with these games starting so late. But no, I think this should be fun. I think this is one, like I mentioned yesterday, that we'll go all 7 games. But I just think right now, the way Florida's playing, they're fully healthy, adding what they've added through transactions. Yeah, they, to me, are the most aggressive team, well-sounded, well-coached. I think Florida's going to take care of it.
Yeah. Connor McDavid, man,
Jesus, he's cold, man.
He's the best. Is he the best player in I'm trying to think. Well, I guess there's an NBA. It's not a fair comparison. He's the best player in the NHL that doesn't have a title.
Correct. Yeah, he's definitely that. Obviously, if Ovi wouldn't have had the season he put together this year, and given his whole track record with what he's been able to accomplish, that's really the only thing that could push you. But yeah, McDavid's the best player in the league. It's not even close.
Yeah. So yeah, this is one of those things where comparatively, it's when is so and so going to win their Super Bowl? When is so and so going to win their title?
Right.
He's gotten this is the second opportunity in a row. Yes. So there's going to be that. I don't think you should question it. I mean, he's the best player all the way around. If it was just about the best, Wayne Gretzky won a bunch of them early on in his career with Edmonton. Yeah, with Edmonton. He didn't win as many down the stretch.
No, he won 5.
And he was still the greatest. He was still the best player in the league, but it's one of those things. So I'm curious. Yeah, I'm glad you're not going to hate watch.
Nah.
Craig, are you going to watch Stanley Cup at all?
Yeah. I mean, I'll have it on the background. I'm not going to have a rooting interest, really. Although to see Canada's pain last another year, I mean, maybe that's an enticing angle. I'm not anti-Canada though, but it does feel like one of those things is I remember wanting to see a Kentucky Derby or a Triple Crown winner. And somebody told me, they're like, that once you see it, you're going to stop caring about it pretty much at all. And they were right. I mean, because once I saw a Triple Crown winner, I was like, all right, seen that. Don't really care about the random ass winners now. And so now it's almost like this thing of, I haven't seen Canada win a Stanley Cup. So now, when they do, am I going to start caring a little bit less than I used to? I don't know. But I know it would be a big damn deal for them, much like it would be a big damn deal for Texas or Texas Tech to win a softball title. But it would also be huge for Florida to run it back. So that's a really great franchise. And, that long storied hockey history in muggy South Florida, the history of ice rinks down there and
yeah,
all of the glorious hockey that's been played over the decades.
That brings you. So the last 4 Stanley Cup champions are the Lightning, the Avalanche, the Golden Knights, and the Panthers. So of those 4 places, only one of them is a place that children play hockey regularly and understood hockey before the NHL got there.
Yeah, up until about 20 years ago. I mean, now all the U.S. guys are from Arizona now,
so,
practically, thanks to the Coyotes and all that. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there would be some people that pull the American angle or the Canadian angle here, but I don't have a dog in the fight.
But if you're a Canadian, that's the thing that would probably bother me the most. Is not only have you not won it in 30 years, but the teams that are winning it are in places that the NHL wound up in, not started in.
Yeah, it's not an original
Boston or New York or wherever. Yeah.
No, yeah, New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, all the same northern cities that are at the beginning of most of the record books because they had all the teams first. They had all the big cities first. But I mean, that's probably another couple inches of that dagger going deeper into you if you're a Canadian hockey fan. But they got a big opportunity and they got a team I think can win it, so that ought to be a lot of fun.
So, Garrett, I also just texted Ralph and see what is going on here. I'm sure he'll be with us in a second. Things pop up. Let's go ahead and use this graphic while we're waiting. There's been a lot of – I didn't want to dive full into this, but Mark Schipper, who we're going to have on the show on Friday, had an interesting comment about it. ESPN released this FPI, Football Power Index, for this year, and these are the top 25 in this. This is not their top 25 poll, but based on all these metrics – and I mean, they've got a lot of teams really high in this thing that don't, or probably don't need to be in it at all based on last year. I mean, Auburn, it's very SEC heavy. There's 13 of the 12 or 13 of the 25 teams are SEC teams, some of whom didn't even make a bowl game last year or barely made a bowl game. USC is really high up in there. Nebraska is really high up in there. There's all these things in it. But that brings to this point right here that Mark Schipper, Fifth Down College Football, made. Could hardly be a better example of why the 5+11 model would be a disaster for college football. Now, we can agree to disagree. Committees that use metrics like this would be picking the majority of postseason participants. ESPN's ownership of the CFP and mega business deal with the SEC should be regarded as a massive conflict of interest at all times. The less work there is for a committee to do, the better off the sport will be. I actually agree with all that. Look, I don't disagree with any of that, because if this metric makes it in there, because this is something they invented. This is not something that has anything to do with reality of what's
based
happening.
On last year, it was half accurate.
Yeah.
Half the teams weren't even ranked in the top 25 at the end of the year that were in the preseason FPI. So unless that was a different version of the FPI, but I know the one we talked about yesterday, if this is the same one, 12 of the teams weren't even in the top 25 by year's end. So I don't know why a preseason poll would matter in any committee setting, because it's a preseason poll. But I understand the overall sentiment. I just don't think this one in particular has any bearing other than it does set the table, and that is the problem with the polls, and that's what Smokey was trying to get to. I just don't think that I think he was trying to take it a different direction about let's get on this rant about the polls, and it's we don't even know what the system is yet.
Yeah.
I have no problem ranting about the polls. I have no problems bitching about the committee, but can we agree on what the format is first? So, because if we're sitting here and waste all this time talking about 5-11 and then they go do the automatic qualifier thing, well, then what was the point? You know what I mean? Initially, you talk about it, you react to it, but at a certain stage, we've talked it out, what are they going with? All right, if they go 5-11, now it's official. Now let's have that conversation about why it's a bad idea. And he lays out a good example of why it's a bad idea. And there is that concern about the polls, but as we've also talked about, polls aren't going anywhere because the TV networks don't want them to. So this harmonic version of college football, I find there's a lot of people that have a lot of great advice, but unfortunately, as they very smugly tell you why their version would be the best, half of it can't be done.
Yeah.
Because they won't agree to it. So, yeah, it would be awesome to have an 8-team playoff, but guess what? They just went vroom right past the moment they had an opportunity. They said, we're at 4. we're not even going to look at 8. We're just going straight to 12. And now we're going to 4. Like 8 was never even under consideration, basically. So yeah, regionality would be great, and this and that would be great, but like none of it's realistic, though. You know what I mean? So that's like, I think the frustrating part is there are solutions, and there are some people with some great ideas, but they're just not able to be implemented because the actual people in charge don't want that to be all square and fair and all the same across the board. They're the ones pushing the further expansion and the further automatic qualifiers and the further this and the further that. I think there's good arguments for both sides. I laid out the Big 12's argument on the 5 and 11. We can get Ralph Russo's opinion on that and why they went that route. I can totally understand everybody saying that they're stupid for doing that and why the other version would be better. So, yeah, we'll see where we fall. But there's good arguments for both sides, and there's downsides to both sides as well. Neither option's perfect. That's for sure.
The man, the myth, the legend, Ralph Russo of The Athletic joins us now. Ralph, always great to talk to you. You wrote a very compelling column today on the SEC and Big Ten. Everything was all buddy-buddy. They were all in together. And then now you find out, and who could have seen this coming other than everybody but them, that they don't necessarily agree on how this should be done. Where do you see this going, and do you see any kind of real compromise between the two leagues?
So I think they will eventually compromise. I would be hesitant to say how that compromise will come about. I think the good news for the SEC and the Big Ten right now is they do sort of acknowledge that they are at the top of the food chain here and they need to work together on things. And I think their leaders, Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, have a good working relationship. They like each other, which is not necessarily the case when Kevin Warren was around. I don't think those two had a very good working relationship. I think now there is at least like an acknowledgement that like, hey, we're in this together. We need to be aligned. But that still does. And it is somewhat ironic, right? These two conferences at the top of the food chain want to control the world to a certain degree. And then when push comes to shove, they can't make up their minds either or get on the same page. I do think eventually we'll get there, but we might be a long way from getting there and figuring out what a compromise looks like.
Ralph, I found it interesting. I mean, at the basis of your article is that they were all hunky-dory, and then there was the SEC kind of flexing its muscles last week and kind of being the cock of the walk, whereas obviously, as you point out, the Big Ten takes a much different approach to things, and that kind of rubbed them the wrong way. But in particular, it's that ninth game, right? That's the hang-up is that night conference game.
So I think there was an understanding among the Big Ten that, hey, we've talked about this 4-2 thing for a while, guys. Like, shouldn't we be on board with that? Like, wasn't that the plan here? So there is part of it is that. I think part of it is, hey guys, like what happened to all that stuff that we worked on for the last year practically. And I think there was also the element that you said of like, yeah, you just did 4 or 5 days of telling everybody how great you are. We won the last 2 national championships. If I'm sitting in the Big Ten seat, like we have the last 2 national champions here. So, if you're just going to tell everybody how great you are, that doesn't sit great with us either. But really, those are sort of, hey, you're rubbing me the wrong way issues. Where the rubber meets the road is the 9 conference games, right? The SEC can say, well, our 8 is tougher than your 9. But it's a math problem, guys. If you play 9 conference games, that's 9 more losses you're sprinkling on within your conference. It's as simple as that. And the Big Ten is sensitive to that because they've been playing 9 for a while. Some things have happened to them in the selection process over the years that hasn't really gone their way. And again, like they just are not going to look at a heavy at-large bid format that where the SEC is not playing 9 games. It's going to be a non-starter. So the first and foremost, after the SEC was sort of in position to be a bit of the hero here, whoa, we're going to come in and stand against this AQ thing that everybody doesn't like. The Big Ten has the ability to flip it back to the SEC and say, okay, you don't want that. You don't want that model. You want to do a bunch of AQs. Go play 9 games. Like, step up, play 9 games like some of us do.
Ralph, do you think that the Big Ten can get on board for a 5-11 after that?
So I think they might have to.
Okay.
Because at a certain point, if you are at loggerheads if there's an impasse between them and the SEC, you end up going back to just sticking at 12. Like, that seems to be what I'm hearing is, hey, if we can't do something different, then let's just keep it the way it is. But that's really might be a little bit of cutting off your nose to spite your face, right? I mean, 16 would be better. 16 fixes some of the problems simply by making a bigger field in terms of getting more teams in there. I think the problem with the Big Ten and where the tension point might be here between Big Ten and SEC, because really, guys, we know where the ACC and the Big 12 stands, but ultimately this is a decision that's going to be made by the Big Ten and the SEC. I think where the tension could lie is, I think the SEC looks at the selection process and the selection committee and thinks maybe we can fix that. Maybe we can create metrics, less subjectivity, and that's our entry point for getting the format and the selection process back to where we think it will better serve us. And I wonder, I feel like in the Big Ten, there is more skepticism about the selection process with the idea that I don't know if this can be fixed, which is essentially why they built this model that's so reliant on conference standings and what you do, more in a more traditional path to getting to the postseason when compared to pro sports.
Do you have a preference as I know you're a reporter, but also you're a fan as well? Like, where do you kind of see this all from that perspective?
I actually appreciate you asking me that in that way, because I tend to be a roll with it guy when it comes to formats. Hey man, just figure it out. Like, I would prefer you probably not go past 16. I was definitely pro playoff. I like the idea of 12. I think once you get past 16, it becomes all right. That seems like a lot, but I'm not naive to know that at some point in my lifetime, hopefully, if all goes well, I will probably see a playoff bigger than 16 teams. But I don't get too bogged down in the formats. I think where I am not quite so hung up on this. We're fixing it in an AQ system. We're rigging the system, because I do see, as you guys, I heard a little bit of your conversation, and I agree with part of, I think, where you were going. Like the Big 12 and the ACC guaranteeing themselves 2 spots with the ability to maybe sneak in another one. I understand that the optics of that isn't great, and it's a problem. It's a legit problem, the optics there. But I could also see, like, yeah, that makes some sense to me. And I do like to see some of the subjectivity out of the process. The reason why I lean more 5-11 and more at large is, for now, as much as I don't love the subjectivity, is I really fear that AQ model devalues the non-conference games to the point where both sides says, oh, we're going to play them. We're going to play these tough non-conference games. But man, like, what will they mean if the conference standings and your conference record determines your playoff hopes? Like, so I'm like, oh, great, we're going to get more Ohio State, Texas games, but what do they mean? And at some point, does the coach of those teams look at them and say, if we're not gaining anything, we're also not risking anything, but we're not gaining anything from this game, why am I treating it like a big deal?
So to the Big 12, I mean, this is a risk, right? I mean, Brett Yormark, and I know Jim Phillips in the AC as well, but they have the 2, and they're saying we're basically going to just go out and earn it, right? So, I mean, this is a gamble, but it's also, I think, at the heart of it for people who are like, you're giving it up. It's the perception as much as anything, for right or wrong.
But perception is huge. I mean, Perception. this is the recruiting base. I mean, still is. And I understand there's a lot of money going around, but this is still a recruiting based enterprise. And to just simply, cede the floor and say, yep, we are half as good as those conferences. That's rough, man. Like that's a hard thing to sign your name to in this space. So again, I don't want to belittle that part of it. Like that's a major problem to just wave your hand and say, we're only half as good and we're going to sign up for that. So I think there is some risk. I also think, though, your mark, the Big 12, ACC, Jim Phillips, played this in a way that was smart. Like, let's see if we can come up with something that appeals to the SEC, because we know they're not as dug in on this AQ model as I think the Big Ten is. They read the room correctly, floated this 511, not even floated, proposed this 511 with the idea that, maybe we can turn the SEC around on that. So they played that well, and now we'll see where it goes. And again, they can only do so much because ultimately it's Sankey and Petiti who are going to make this decision. And I think they both will tell you we're going to make the decision for what's best for all of college football. But you wear a couple of hats in those rooms.
Yeah, I don't believe that for 1 second that they believe that. Even if they're going to do that, even if they may even believe it. What did George tell Jerry at the lie detector? Jerry, it's not a lie if you believe it. Like, maybe that's the case there, but is the only weapon the ACC and Big 12 have PR? Really? Like of just saying over and over again and running the risk, like Craig said, of being the next Florida State, a team that runs through and then is an arbitrarily left out of even a 16-team playoff.
So I'm going to apologize. You're going to hear some sounds of the city behind me from Brooklyn here. You might hear a siren go by there. I apologize for that. What I would say is, I do think their greatest weapon, if they really are set that the trade-off between AQs and the brand damage that comes with them, if they truly believe that we cannot sign up for that model because it does too much brand damage and that it's better to have something that's more wide open, if that's their position and they're sticking with it, what they have to thwart that to a certain degree is a lot of PR pushing back on the idea that, listen, these ideas also don't seem popular with the general public. And I do think that is something that plays into maybe Greg Sankey's thinking more than Tony Petiti, because Sankey has been through these wars. And the BCS, even though he wasn't the SEC commissioner, he was in the SEC at the time of the BCS, the playoff, the 14 playoff, yada, yada. So I think he understands if we push something through that has a bad Q rating, that does not poll well among our general fandom, that's not a great way to operate a business either. And I think if the Big 12 and the ACC can sort of hammer some of that home, again, good at the game, this is not popular amongst our fans. This might not be popular, by the way, with our TV partner. That's where they can pull some levers, get the SEC on their side, and then sort of force the Big Ten to, come to a compromise that maybe it doesn't want to come to.
Do you think that the propaganda that's been kind of released, like Ryan Day said today, the Big Ten automatic, like they do, and the way that they talk about their conferences relative to everybody else, that seems to omit the fact that the rules are different than they were when you built up all of this steam. Apparently, the Big Ten has won the last 2 national titles probably because of this, because they've been able to go and get guys out of the SEC that they weren't able to before, with transfer in the portal. So the propaganda, again, it's still going to be skewed towards the teams that have more money, but the depth is different all across. They seem to be leaving that part out when they're making their point of the reason the SEC wasn't as good last year is their talent is spread out now.
So there is a good argument to be made that we are using data set of let's go back to 1998 for the BCS or 2014 for the playoff, right? In other words, the data set that we're using to sort of judge how teams got in, what programs got in, that should be used to project forward is not relevant because the systems of college football are not as relevant and they're not the same, right? We are literally moving into a new era. Again, I think I've talked to you guys about this. I definitely think we are shifting the landscape here in terms of super teams and talent being redistributed. I'm still not sure exactly what that looks like long term. I do know that, again, listen, very simply, Ohio State and Michigan won the last 2 national championships. That's notable, right? A lot of the head-to-head between the Big Ten and the SEC has been notably more Big Ten on the Big Ten side, so that's notable. But yeah, I definitely and listen, if I'm the Big 12, this is part of my argument going forward is we are entering into a new world of revenue sharing, which is supposed to also flatten the surface, flatten the competition a little bit. So we want our chance to prove ourselves within the new era and the new system, and maybe we fare better. So we don't want to lock in a system based on previous results when college sports is undergoing so much change in how teams are built.
Ralph Russo of The Athletic. Ralph, thank you so much for hopping on today. We like the sounds of the city. That's ambiance. We like that. That gets us into I can taste the pizza right now thinking about Brooklyn. You could throw a rock and hit 100 better pizza places than we have within 100 miles of here. So that
is probably true. I will say the ambiance can be a little frustrating in a first floor apartment when you're trying to get some sleep in the morning. It can be a little, those garbage trucks are really, really close to your bedroom window.
Yeah.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning. So yes, I love the ambiance of the city, but at times it's not as enjoyable as you might think.
Also doesn't smell like pizza. That's for sure. Yeah. Ralph, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Always appreciate it.
Yeah. Ralph Russo of The Athletic with us, long time with the AP, now with The Athletic. When we come back, Tyler Budge at CFB. Budge will join us. He's got opinions on things, and he did, and we've got the graphic for that. And I did mine today for the top 5 in the spirit of having him there. But these are the next Clemson, Oregon, based on Kenny Dillingham's kind of comment the other day, which I really enjoyed and thought was interesting. I had a little bit of a different take on this, but this is his 10. We'll put this graphic up again when he's on in just a second. This is 365 Sports.
My journey to try to stay fit, try to keep my weight down, has been through quite a bit the last, let's say, 6 to 12 months. When I was 282.5 pounds and I arrived at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness in March of 2013, it was going to be a challenge. I'd been through various, I guess you could say, weight loss opportunities, this and that, but I just did it for 3 or 4 months and then I'd put the weight back on, which is not healthy at all. So finally, I started to work out. Christy London, personal trainer, took me from 282.5 pounds down to as low as 190. And today, I'm 192 pounds, despite the fact that I've had some really kind of almost chronic, at times, soreness in my right hip, at times because my shoulders flared up with muscle spasms, and I'm also older, about to turn 66. But it has been worth it because I feel better. I finally, back in mid to late January, well, actually early February, said, damn it, I've got to fight through some of this. Not doing things that'll make it worse, but doing things to help me lose an inch or two and especially lose some weight. I was getting too big. Didn't get over, 202, but now back to 192 today. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go in international and
missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels, House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak and Tyler Budge. College football preview magazine that he does, and CFB Budge, CF_Budge. I almost said CFB Budge. CF_Budge on Twitter. You can see all of his graphics, all the stuff that he does. And we've had Tyler on before, and hard at work about to be promoting the magazine, I know. Which when is the release date? Do you have one yet, or?
Yeah, we're shooting for mid-June release date.
Okay.
It's humming along, wrapping up the final details here. As you know, the spring portal stuff happens pretty late into the year, so it's always a sprint at the end, but it's always a good time.
Yeah. All right. So I did my top 5 today on this very topic, and it's one of the reasons I had you, on the show. I do want to ask you about your thoughts on the playoff thing. We just have Ralph Russo, so we'll gap it a little bit. I want to start with Kenny Dillingham. Said that there could be a Clemson/Oregon of the 2020s, and why not Arizona State, who you have ranked? This is your graphic here: Ole Miss, ASU, Indiana, A&M, Tech, Iowa State, Syracuse, Colorado, SMU, and TCU. What went into your thinking on this? I thought it was a great thing to bring up, like especially now where you can maybe shortcut some things that you wouldn't have had to do before. What kind of brought you into the list, and why are these teams the ones, in your opinion, that are the ones that fit that metric the most?
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting sort of test group of teams that Kenny Dillingham was talking about, becoming the next Oregon or Clemson. I just thought that'd be a really interesting group to look at. And so primarily what I was looking at was, what programs are we going to look back when the 2020s are concluded and say, wow, they really got put on the map? And when we're talking about sustainable for the back half of this decade, we already have like a half of a decade to work with. And some of the teams on there haven't had too much success in the first half of the decade, but that's certainly factored in there. But talent acquisition was a big one for me. Are they going to be acquiring enough talent to be competing at that level and current trajectory? And also, do they have a head coach that's taking them in the right direction and progressing? So I think Ole Miss is a team that gets the top there because I think they already have a pretty hefty resume. And if no team on that list really does anything too crazy, we look back at the 2020s and probably say, hey, Ole Miss is a program that really put themselves back on the map under Lane Kiffin. So I was really just looking at what their trajectory is. So it's like a half projection, half based off of what we've already kind of seen from them for nearly half the decade.
You clearly are buying what Kenny is selling, though, right? I mean, Arizona State there at number 2. I mean, this question mark about how they'd fit into the new Big 12, dead last in the preseason to number 1, as has been well documented. Why are you buying the Arizona State stock and going along with his idea?
Yeah, I'm buying it because I just think the Sun Devils are moving in the right direction in so many ways. I thought they had been a sleeping giant for a long time, and there were so many factors working against them recently with some of the NCAA sanctions and the Herm Edwards situation, and Kenny Dillingham just flipped things so quickly. And I thought a lot of the signs were there in that 3-9 season that they were a well-coached team. Wasn't expecting as big of a payoff year as we got last year with a Big 12 title. That was obviously extremely unexpected for a lot of people, but they've got one of the top recruiting classes in the Big 12, I believe, number 1 by average recruit rank, if you look right now, at least for this season and then next season as well. They're portaling at a very high rate right now. So I think what he's building is very sustainable. I trust Kenny's going to be there for the foreseeable future because it's his alma mater. He's obviously very invested there. And with comments like that, you really trust he's going to be there long term. So I think the Sun Devils have the potential to be sort of the Big 12's flagship program as it is in this new era. And I just think they're built to be sustained. So with another 5-6 years of Kenny at the helm, I would expect another conference title in there and a pretty compelling case to actually be compared to like an Oregon or a Clemson in terms of a team that really emerged.
Okay. I see you have Indiana, Kurt Signetti. Get that one right there. A&M at 4. They could be like, you could do this list 10 years from now and they would be at 4 in that one too if their trajectory holds, because no one spends more and gets the same, not less. They spend more and get the same. It is befuddling how Texas A&M has stayed caught in who they have always been more than anyone else. Is Mike Elko the guy who can maybe, because he is no frills, and that fits very well with the vibe in College Station, is he the guy who could maybe get them out of that?
Yeah, I said it for a long time. Texas A&M's in need of a substance over flash coach, and I think that's exactly what Mike Elko is. What I will say is 2024 panned out in an eerily similar manner to what the Aggies fans have been used to for a while, which is things are looking pretty good, and then it just all seems to tumble apart. They lost all those games late in the season and went from nearly a lock to be in the SEC title game to, I believe, 8-5 was their final record, which is the joke when Jimbo was there, the Texas 8-4 instead of Texas A&M. So I think Elko's the right guy. That's why they're on the list. They are held back just a little bit because of what did they call it? Battered Aggie syndrome, where it just feels like something's going to go wrong every year.
Yeah. Okay. Which team do you feel could rapidly fall out of your list if one thing changes?
I feel like you might be targeting Colorado with that one, where you got Coach Prime is there. Definitely that would be a candidate if he were to fall. There's a lot of things with that program that weren't there before Coach Prime was there. Outside of that, not looking at the list at the top of my mind, there's some schools that I really like the investment that's there. I guess Indiana, maybe, if you're taking the Signetti route, because there was also a lot they brought to the table. Also a very small recent sample size with just sort of the 1 year. There's a few Tom Allen seasons in there where you saw some potential as well. But those would be the two I think of right off the bat.
You have SMU and TCU right at the bottom. They're kind of in the same exact boat. I mean, SMU probably has a little bit more. Not probably. They do. They have way more money than you can possibly ever imagine. But TCU has a bunch of money too that they can get excited about. They don't feel as scorned over 30 years as or 40 years as SMU does, which is part of the reason they've got these people spending this money. But they kind of sit in a space where they could kind of rise together. And even not because there's a rivalry that they're not going to play anymore and all that, but I'm very interested to see the trajectory of those because one's ACC, one's Big 12. They're in the same metro area and all those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I made a point to put those programs on here, especially TCU, because I think people forget about them as sort of being a program in this conversation the moment they're back out of like the national sphere. But you got to give a ton of credit to TCU's program where they've been. Honestly, one of the reasons that they're lower on the list is because of their relative recent success. It's kind of just like a weird criteria for the list where Kenny Dillingham's talking about teams that will put themselves on the map. And I almost put TCU a little lower because I'm like, I feel like they're kind of already on the map with all the great things that they've done in relative recent memory.
So what are your thoughts on the 5 and 11 or the AQs? Where do you fall in that argument? I saw that you, no, it was somebody else, but 5 and 11 versus AQs. Where are you?
I've kind of gone back and forth on this discussion and this topic. And right now I am actually buying into AQs a little bit more than I used to, which I know is tough. I know people get really angry when they hear AQs, but specifically the model I've been really digging recently is one that's been floated by Josh Pate, one that's been floated by Joel Klatt, which involves not a 16-team field, but a 14-team field with AQs built in. It's the same 4-4-2-2, and then one for the group of 5, one at-large bid model we've been talking about. And I think it just makes a lot more sense when you look at it. It's kind of a complicated one to explain, but it involves the subcommittees in each conference. So each conference has its own committee. You take a lot of the power away from the committee that nobody likes, and there's going to be a lot less controversy because it's going to be the SEC committee ranking SEC teams against SEC teams. I do think it just bakes in importance in the regular season a lot more than what might happen with 5+11, where if you're a 9-1 Tennessee and you've got 2 games left in the year, if you're talking about a 5-11 model, you're going to make the playoff regardless of whether or not you lose out in the season. Versus if we're doing sort of like a play-in format with like the 4 bids in the SEC, Tennessee's battling for like a home field advantage in that play-in game versus potentially not being in that play-in format that the SEC has. If that makes sense. I don't know if you guys have seen that model being floated around.
Yeah, I have. I here's the thing. Craig and I talked about it. The Big 12 and ACC are in a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
They're screwed either way. So they're basically banking on themselves. And I know a lot of people are trying to feed them this. Well, you've got 2 automatically. You should love that. But it's also like, well, you're telling me I'm going to go be in B class for the rest of my life, and there's no chance to get back to A class. And I think that sometimes gets lost in the conversation, is not understanding that, yeah, it might be the dumber route to take, but it's the only route that they have to try and claw back anything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand the sentiment with that completely. I mean, I was on board with that initially until I heard a little bit more about this other AQ model. And I do think there's a lot more trust you have to put into other people with the AQ model, that it's going to be done right, because there's a lot of ways it can look really stupid. Just like we saw with the first year of the 12-team playoff, there were so many things that were silly about the way they handled a lot of stuff. But I totally understand. If you're the Big 12 EAC, I'm an Oregon State fan. We're out here fighting for our lives, trying to just get knock on the door somewhere. So I totally understand that, and the desperation that comes from that. Ton of passionate programs and fan bases that don't want to get left behind, and they don't want to relegate themselves and say, yeah, we're only 50% of what the SEC and Big Ten are. So I totally understand where that's coming from.
So from a media standpoint, I mean, you cover everybody, and you're talking obviously about the bigger topics and all of that. But as a college football fan, did what happened over the past couple of years ding you from an OSU perspective? Like, kind of how have you handled all that? Because I feel like everybody's already moved on and forget that Oregon State and, Washington State are still out there, and that amongst all this talk about what could happen, it did happen to them. I mean, they, for so many reasons, got relegated basically.
Yeah, no, I mean, it absolutely dinged me. I'm an Oregon State fan through and through. I did go to Arizona State University, so I do have them to cling to in this era of conference realignment. But it really hurt. I am an Oregon State fan through and through. There it is, the logo. I'm trying to point to it right there in the background. You can see. But yeah, I mean, I was in denial about it for a little bit, thinking about all the ways they can do it. But the moment you start to talk about the new Pac-12, it's very clearly a relegation. They're in a much worse conference. You hear about it happening to other teams. I heard the stories of South Florida and teams from the Big East and some of the other programs over the years that's happened to. But it just sucks to happen to your program, because it does hurt your program at the end of the day. There's less exciting games on the schedule. There's less resources coming to your program as well. So speaking firsthand, yeah, absolutely. As a fan, it was pretty crushing.
You do a lot of power rankings for the Group of Five and those things, and follow along. We had Jeremiah Dickey from Boise State on last week. The AD. We're going to have the Fresno State AD on probably on Friday this week, and he brought up a point that I think is really interesting. What the Group of Five wants to know is, okay, if you're going to give the Power Four autonomy for all this, what do you have to do as a conference, as an institution, to get there if you want to? Because even in European soccer models, there's a way that you can get there if you have the resources and if you win enough in their relegation and promotion model. This is set up to where eventually it just feels like they're going to try to squeeze those schools out, because there isn't a path for them. Do you think that there should be, like, when all this house settlement, all this, should there be a, look, if you're willing to do this, this, and this, and you get to this kind of expenditures and all of that and raise this money, we will allow you to be now the autonomy 5 if it's the Pac-12 that gets back to that kind of footing?
Yeah, I absolutely would love a mechanism like that to be in place. And I think it should be a dynamic model. That's what I love so much about the college football I grew up with, is that it was dynamic. The Mountain West, if it had a great year, it could have 3 top 25 teams and 3 teams in the conversation. I wasn't alive for much of it, but when the Big East was around, that was an awesome thing, having another sort of power conference in the mix. So I love a dynamic model that rewards conferences for good seasons and not for having a good history. The issue is it's going to take some degree of compromise, because the powers that be, the Big Ten, the SEC, they're not going to give up the power they have. They're looking out for their own self-interest. It's going to take either a massive compromise, or it's going to take some outside governing body of some sort that is looking out for the best interest of college football. Because right now, the people that have the power aren't looking for that. And it's going to take compromise to say, hey, if you get good enough one day, we'll give you like a slice of the pie or whatever it is. So it'll take either compromise or somebody coming in and laying down the hammer somehow.
Craig, anything else? Tyler, I always appreciate having you on. We need to have you on once the magazine comes out as well to talk about some of that. Don't want to give any of that away. So you mentioned the spring portal being late and you kind of having to scramble. When the spring portal opens, does part of you wish, like, please, nobody of note go somewhere? Like, just don't. Because a lot of the spring portal is more utility or necessity of, hey, we need 2 guards. Like, we're going to find the best that we can. We've got starters, but if those guys get hurt, we're kind of screwed. Most of it is that. How much more difficult does it make it when you do have to wait on that, when most of it is filling the back end of the roster as opposed to the front end?
Yeah, I mean, it was an extremely frustrating spring cycle, because I'm sitting there with like the general outlines for a lot of these teams and like, okay, I think I'm going to rock with this. We'll see how they deal with like some depth pieces or something like that. It's going to be tiny little adjustments here, but we're talking about like the headline chaining for teams like Tennessee and UCLA and Cal. There were so many teams in the spring portal. It was one of the crazier ones we've had, where I'm just like, oh my goodness, Cal's entire running back room just hit the portal. Oh my goodness, the entire dynamic of Syracuse football just changed because they went and got a quarterback. Stuff like that kept happening, which is a little frustrating, but it's also good for content and it's cool to talk about. So I can't complain too much, but definitely that happened a lot more this spring portal window than it did last year.
Yeah, the Nico Joey Aguilar trade, that happened. Syracuse, I just kind of felt that they were excited about Ricky Collins, who came in from LSU, and then no, maybe not as much. That really, especially when you get to a Syracuse one, that they kind of go and grab a guy out of the portal like that, that's not going to be there until June, that's not going to really play football with them until August or July when they start practicing. That's really got to be hard to like write your preview on, because now they have a quarterback battle that is not settled going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's all a matter of how you read that. Do you read that as, wow, they don't have as much trust in Ricky Collins? Or do you read that as, oh, iron sharpens iron, they want to bring in a guy to test Ricky Collins? They also did a weird tango with Trevor Pena, where he's now at Penn State. And then they went out and added, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but there was a Texas guy that was in the portal. So just so much to reevaluate with some of the roster moves that happen, and just a little bit of weirdness, which you always love to see in college football. It's kind of what makes the sport, quirky in some ways, because there was, again, the Cal situation was pretty funny. And then, of course, Stanford fires their head coach as well. So, like, there's stuff like that just continually happen. But with Syracuse, yeah, what's the dynamic? We don't even have much information. Angeli's barely stepped on campus. So there's a lot of stuff to sift through. And you just got to, like, report the facts sometimes and be like, I don't know, we'll see.
Tyler, I've seen you all over and talk about a variety of different things. One of those things is also the video game. I wanted to ask before we let you go, what's your excitement level this year in comparison to last year? And just how hyped are you for the second version of college football?
My excitement level is out of 10. I really felt last year was so exciting, but I really felt that last year was sort of the framework for the game. And I couldn't blame them, right? We wanted a game. They wanted to get it out last year. They did. but there was a lot of things that were missing, important things like the head coaches. Some of the game presentation felt a little bit just too like in a box, if that makes sense. And I'm just so excited about the additions they made. The fact that real head coaches and coordinators, which is just over the top. I wasn't even expecting coordinators, are in the game. It's the first time we've ever actually had that before. Like you could import the names, and so somebody would actually like go in and import them. But that was back in the PS3 days. I'm just excited that we're going to get real head coaches in the game. It just adds so much depth and realism to it, and it's just one of my favorite parts of the offseason. It's really going to carry us through what can be a rough July.
Tyler, what is your hottest take going into that you can tease for the magazine?
Hottest take. I've got Georgia Tech in my ACC title game. I'm really buying into what Brent Key's building.
Yeah, look, people don't talk about that enough, and especially if you look at how the schedule lays out for them, they've got a pretty good shot to have 9 wins pretty early on in that run. Given Haynes King coming back, if he can throw for all 12 games, watch out.
Absolutely. I'm buying in. I just love a team that has a chip on their shoulder too. And I really think that if that, 8 overtime game versus the Bulldogs goes the other way, a lot more people would be high on Georgia Tech. So I'm taking advantage of that. I think the stock is too low. It should be a little higher. I'm going to be rocking with the Yellow Jackets this season.
Tyler Budge, CFB_Budge. You can click there. You can order the preview magazine. It's come out in mid-June, which is we're in June right now. So the middle of this month. Tyler Budge. Tyler, thanks a lot. Talk to you soon. That is Tyler Budge. And when we come back, we will have the Northwestern schedule. Something I know that everybody's been waiting for, Craig.
With bated breath. I mean, the countdown, I'm surprised we haven't had the clock going for the last few weeks to count down to the debut of the Northwestern schedule in this program. But no, nothing against them. I'm just thinking about all the ground we're about to cover in the next couple months. I'm getting excited. And this is kind of part of the countdown, is going through schedules and talking to Tyler about various things like the video game coming out. And I don't have TikTok. I will never have TikTok. But you can still see videos. And now the common thing is now people do what they used to do, where they used to post like Twitter videos on Facebook. And now you're seeing like people posting TikTok videos on Twitter. And it's like, you can't outrun it even if you want to. But I know he does a lot of stuff over there as well. And so, he's a good content creator in the college space. And I've seen a couple of his, I think the reason I brought it up is I saw a couple of his TikToks, I think through some means. I don't know. It wasn't me being on TikTok though. Are you on there?
No, just
we have a show page.
But
I've seen he was talking about the video game on one of them. And so we got that coming up. Media days are right around the corner. A lot of talk about the playoff, obviously. And just for a moment there and talking to him, I think it was him talking about the preseason magazine. I just started thinking about that. And I was like, we're kind of getting close, aren't we? I mean, if you think about it, we're getting pretty close to it actually getting pretty real again, which is nice and exciting. But he does a good job. We got that magazine last year. He gave it to us in Las Vegas. And it's actually kind of deja vu-ish that's sitting specifically right on my desk somewhere. And I remember seeing it the other day and I was like, that might be an interesting guest idea. No BS.
Yeah.
And then I just put it to the side. I didn't think about it again because I just got distracted. And then you had him on the day, and I was just like, it's really weird.
Yeah.
You have cameras in my place, Paul? Is that just such deja vu that – because, but us both thinking about him is just very random. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we were on the same page there.
I don't, but I can't confirm or deny whether I have access to someone who does.
Yes. Okay. Well,
so it's not.
It's a very small world.
If you find cameras, they're not mine.
But it was like a week ago. I'm sitting there and I'm going through old stuff, and I had the magazine from last year, and he actually scrawled his number on it. And I was like, I need to make note of that. And then I didn't. And then we had him on this week. So it's just funny how that worked out, but it worked out well. And he does a great job, like I said. And just another piece of the countdown machine to the college football season and more stuff to explore.
Yeah. So also, Craig, don't go to onlycraig.com. Don't do that.
Okay. Well, yeah.
That's, I don't.
I'll never be famous enough to go that's not my Instagram page. I only have this and that, but I can tell you, just if there happened to ever be somebody you came across, no, I don't have TikTok. I can definitely tell you that, and I never will. So
yeah. No, I don't. My wife has it, and she rather enjoys it. with this Karen Reed trial that's going on now.
Oh
She's
my
been on
God, I can only
TikTok
imagine.
quite a bit.
Can
quite
only
a bit.
imagine.
So,
but yeah, I'm kind of bare bones now, man. Honestly, I'm like down to like pretty much Twitter, and as you can see by my posting history, that's pretty irregular at this point.
Mm-hmm.
More of a surfer than anything. No Insta, no TikTok, no Facebook, no nothing, man. I'm bare bones.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna have any friends as a result of it, but
all of it I have
the
is
sacrifices
is almost all for professional stuff. I have a little bit of interaction on Twitter and Instagram, a little bit, but it's not like it's just when I don't like I don't post all that much.
Yeah,
you know?
it's different strokes, different folks. I'm not
so,
judging. I'm just speaking for me. I just have whittled it down. I feel like I'm in the dark ages almost in a way. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, the Northwestern Wildcats, the purple, well, vegetable. No, I don't. They're there. They've been good at times. Northwestern, can they make a bowl this year? We'll talk about it next. This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Penny to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Craig, keep that you just read us in the break. I want to do that after we do the Northwestern schedule. Again, don't want to mess up the tease. But I do want to talk about what you just told us about the teams that would have made it from the Big 12 several times if the 5+11 format existed.
There's a graphic. We said, can I just call him Budge? I just like the name Budge.
Yeah.
And I was born raised in the city called Tyler, but I was talking to Budge there, and he had a graphic that I came across after the fact, but it was talking about the 5-11 and what teams would have made it like the last 10 years if 5-11 was in play as is being proposed. And I think there's still arguments to be had on both sides, but I'll hold that back because we did tease that we're going to have the Northwestern schedule here. So we still got an hour to go. So we got plenty of time to cover all of that. But we'll go ahead and dive in the schedule here for Northwestern as we make our way through the Big Ten. So it's the Wildcats' turn, alphabetical order. We've already been through a couple of other conferences, ACC, Big 12. And this is just an offseason, not even so much an exercise of trying to predict anything, but just taking a look at every single team and just giving them a good 10 minutes of just looking at what they got upcoming and how all that falls into play. And I feel better for having done it because I don't remember every single thing, but I do feel like I've at least taken a look at Northwestern after the fact, or taken a look at Illinois, or teams that I might not otherwise talk as much about or pay as much attention to. I am doing that as a result of this exercise, so hopefully it works out for you in a similar fashion. But Northwestern up as we go alphabetical, had Nebraska. I guess that was yesterday. And so the Wildcats, man, you mentioned bowl game kind of flippantly. They made one a couple of years ago. I mean, it's just 2 years ago. It's been some hard times, though, over the last decade. That's for sure. 4-8 last year under second-year head coach David Braun. But 2 years ago, they did win 8 games in his debut year, won the Las Vegas Bowl. But prior to that, it's been very up and down. You got 3 wins in 7 years, and 3 wins, 7 wins, 3 wins, 1 win, 8 wins, 4 wins. So it's definitely not a straight line, and it's definitely not going straight one direction or the other. It's just very much up and down. So what does Northwestern have in store as far as what they will be facing this season? Well, how about right out of the gates going to NOLA and taking on Tulane? Just right there in week number 1, Saturday, August the 30th. A nice non-conference matchup for the Wildcats with the Green Wave. It's already been announced as an 11 a.m. kickoff there on Saturday, August the 30th. So that will be their first matchup. And, hey, man, take your pick as far as that goes. Then they will have a short turnaround, but not too much to be concerned about, because although you are playing on a Friday, so that costs you a day going into your second week, is Western Illinois. I think you feel pretty confident about being able to beat them with one less day to get ready. But that is going to be a Big Ten Network Friday night game there, Western Illinois, Northwestern. Then you get into Saturday, September the 13th. You got Northwestern playing host to Oregon. It's already been announced as a noon game on Fox. And then you get your first bye week. So I'm thinking 1 and 2 is very possible here.
Yeah.
And 2 and 1's also possible. I don't see a scenario where they're beating Oregon in week 3, though. So 2 and 1 or 1 and 2 is where I see them. 0 and 3, disaster has struck. And 3 and 0, oh, damn, we need to start talking more about Northwestern.
Exactly. I think Tulane's going to be pretty good. John Sumrall, the coach there. So, yeah, I think this is a 1 and 2 start, which, looking at the rest of their schedule, you've now, lost some chances to get to that, but they don't, they kind of get a couple chances to win games, and then they get Oregon, right? That pops up, and then they have we'll go through the rest of it here. But yeah, I think that's probably 1 and 2. And if it's 0 and 3, then the loss to the Western Illinois Leathernecks is not going to go over well.
No, that wouldn't go over well at all. That'd be bad news for David Braun. So you got those 3 games to start off the season. They'll take a break, get that bye week into play, and then come back for the remainder of this second wave of the schedule. Everybody with 2 bye weeks, as our audience probably knows all too well, but just reasserting that. So after that first bye week, Saturday, September the 27th, they are at home, 3rd straight home game, taking on UCLA. Then a 4th straight home game as they will welcome in UL Monroe. So kind of funky placing of a non-conference game there, as you've already played a couple conference games. But UL Monroe there on Saturday, October the 4th. Keep rolling into Saturday, October the 11th. You got a trip to Happy Valley, take on Penn State, who could very well be like the number 1 team in the country at this point, top 5, top 10, or maybe they've slipped a little bit, but they should be pretty damn good. We know that. Then Saturday, October the 18th, you're back at home taking on the Purdue Boilermakers. No break yet. You get 1 more game before your second bye, and that will be Saturday, October the 25th. You go to Lincoln to take on Matt Rule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So that second wave, you got home against UCLA and UL Monroe and Purdue, and road trips to Penn State and Nebraska.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really hard to get through above water. Like their schedule is not like Oklahoma last year tough, but I mean, it's pretty like close to what you would in the Big Ten because, Purdue has a new coach in Barry Odom, and they get that one at home. UCLA
they should be better. You would just assume
yeah.
they'll be a bit, not, I don't know how much, but they should just be better.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah. And then UCLA, we don't really know how that's going to work out. And of course, Louisiana Monroe, those are games that I would say they have the best shot at winning, but on the road in Happy Valley and in Lincoln, I don't see that working out for them.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I did see Nebraska lose at home in person last year, but Illinois was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, and that was a game that was pretty crazy down to the wire and was an insane game to watch and be there for. But yeah, they've drawn some of the bigger names so far in this schedule. So they'll have their second bye week, and then they come back 4-game stretch to close out the year. Their second Friday game, and that will be on Fox on the road against USC. So over the span of a month, they will go to Happy Valley, to Lincoln, and to Los Angeles as part of this schedule. They turn around. They're back at home. Good news, right?
Mm-hmm.
They get Michigan on Saturday, November the 15th. Then
they're at home. They're both at Wrigley Field back-to-back weeks.
Wrigley Field back-to-back. Well,
yeah.
It's a home game.
Yeah,
it's a home game. So then they get Minnesota as a home game on November 22nd, and then close it on out on the road at Illinois, who we just mentioned a second ago, who I got to see go beat Nebraska in person last year. So, yeah, that is the final stretch of the schedule, looking at road trips to Champaign in Los Angeles and Michigan and Minnesota at your home spot there, sandwiched in between. So, man, it's pretty daunting looking schedule, man. You're going to Tulane, to Penn State, to Nebraska, to USC, to Illinois. You still get Oregon, Penn State, and Penn State's on the road. You still get Oregon, Michigan, and then who knows how much better UCLA or Purdue might be. But yeah, man, you're scraping to make a bowl game this year. I think that's pretty fair to say.
Yeah, look, if this winds up 4-8, I think they should be like, okay, because that's going to be tough. That's going to be really, really, really tough. And Northwestern's maybe more behind the 8 ball than anybody else in the entire Big Ten when it comes to rebuilding a roster. Because, again, it's like Stanford. Like, you can't just go and be like, man, this kid's good. Let's get him here. NIL money and all that. You could have it, but you got to make the grades. And, there's not and this, look, admittedly, at a lot of the Big Ten schools, there aren't basket weaving majors, but it is even tougher. So, yeah, I would say 4-8 would be a tremendous way to come through this schedule.
Well, 4-8 would be the under. They are projected at 4.5 wins last I looked, and that puts them in a group of teams that they will be playing alongside of, though. So there's some games on there that maybe you chalk up as a loss that maybe is more of a flip type game that they could pull one away, like an Illinois, for example, like a Purdue. But yeah, they are in that 4.5 club. Illinois is actually 5.5, but 4.5, you got Michigan State, Northwestern, Minnesota, Purdue, and UCLA as well. So there's another team that's kind of on par with them. So you can see where maybe they sneak a couple wins, but yeah, there's not a lot of room for error on this schedule. Now, they do have some teams they miss, obviously. You're not going to play Ohio State, so that's nice. You don't play Iowa. You don't play Washington. You don't play Wisconsin. You don't play, Maryland. And then we kind of get into who else is out there that I haven't mentioned. Michigan State. Don't play Michigan State either. And they don't play
Rutgers
or Indiana. So I think that's the crew of teams they don't play. So they do miss out, but man, they do get if you're a fan looking for names on the schedule, I think you're satisfied with that. You got a handful of names for sure. You do miss out on a couple of ones, but yeah, that's pretty daunting. So you can see why they're at 4.5 over under this year, the old Northwestern Wildcats. That's what they're looking at in 2025.
Yeah. All right, Craig, let's talk about your 5+11 or Budge's 5+11 graphic that he had there. We can't, it's too late to get it up on the screen, but Craig will go through it for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just making a comment during the break of, and that's basically our schedule exercise. So who's tomorrow? Who's Penn State? No, Ohio State. Yeah, Ohio State. So we'll have Ohio State tomorrow. I predict that they lose like a game or two when we're planning it out, but that's pretty much every year, right? So we'll get to that tomorrow, but just a fun way to look at every team in the country as best as we can. So on to our buddy Budge's graphic that I saw during the commercial break. He had a tier list. I guess he got on a good old tier maker. And he put together 3 days ago college football playoff appearances by school if the 5-11 CFP was in place since 2014, which obviously is the start of the college football playoff. And you got a pretty good response on this, as basically lists just do, right? Like, you got to really like screw up a list, I feel like, to not get a huge reaction in college football circles, especially the tiered stuff. But what I found interesting in this is, I know there's the other side of the argument where you could say, well, this is how many teams would have the opportunity if it was the AQ. But under the 5-11, looking at it from a Big 12 perspective, or if we want to go outside and look at it from the ACC perspective, just for the have-nots, if you will, or have less is maybe a better term to use. The Big 12 in this, granted, this accounts for Texas and Oklahoma, would have been near the top and have made abundance of appearances up until last year. But TCU would have led the way with 4 playoff appearances in the last 10 years. If the 5-11 was in play, they have just the 1 playoff appearance where they beat Michigan, that people just don't acknowledge, and then they got beat by Georgia so badly that people forgot the Michigan game happened.
That's what
happens. Yeah,
when you run up against a generational top 20 all-time college football roster,
knock the win out of your mind. So TCU would have had 4 playoff appearances under the 5-11 model. Baylor and Utah. And obviously Utah is like Texas and Oklahoma, where they were in different leagues. Thank you for going and grabbing that so quickly. But Baylor and Utah, talking about where teams currently are, would have had 3 playoff appearances. So that there is an inexact science here. It's also why we complain about the SEC using models from the last like 10, 15 years. It's like Texas and Oklahoma have been with you 1 year.
Yeah.
They weren't there the other 14 that you're now counting for.
Yeah.
So there is that asterisk that does need to be put into play here. But Utah would have made 3 appearances. Arizona State and Arizona, Cincinnati, BYU, Oklahoma State, K-State, UCF, and West Virginia. All those schools would have made a couple of playoff appearances under the 5-11 model. And then you get into the who would have made 1, and just using the Big 12 specifically for this exercise, Iowa State would have made it 1 year. Colorado would have made it 1 year. Houston would have made it 1 year. So I don't know who I haven't mentioned, but that's almost everybody in the league would have made a playoff appearance in the last 10 years under a 5-11 model. And I know it's not exact, like I keep pointing out, just to be clear for the person who inevitably says, well, technically, I get it. But for this exercise, that's got to be a little enticing when you look at that and go, well, damn, we haven't been very good, but we would have made the playoff 1 year in this thing. And I don't know if you're Houston, but
how much can, if you have the right guy in place, that's not going to leave. Like, part of the thing is like, you know, Houston would have made a playoff and then their coach would have gotten hired away.
Tom Herman. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, exactly. And they won that game that year too against FSU.
Well, that's the trade-off,
so,
man,
like,
is instead of making a playoff now, you had your Cinderella ending.
Yeah.
And that's what we've traded off now.
Yeah.
And that's, a different topic.
But if you have a guy who's not grass is always greener, Matt Campbell, right?
Right.
So you have a Matt Campbell at your school that makes a playoff. What can that mean for you going forward when that wasn't available to you before? I think that's the most valuable thing for it, is where you can look at a lot of these schools, and a lot of them, if you are, like, Arizona's in there twice, Northwestern. If Northwestern's coach makes 2 playoffs, he's at another school in the Big Ten after that second one. Like,
probably
almost certainly. But there are schools on the list like Iowa State, like Oklahoma State. Like, had Mike Gundy had that avenue to, like, maybe create some success, otherwise, like, always getting right up to the, 1 inch away, like they literally were.
Literally once. 1 inch away from a playoff spot in a Big 12 championship.
Yeah, literally 1 inch away. If you give a coach like Mike Gundy that opportunity, how much different is it now? If he can not only get in the playoff, but maybe win a game or two, maybe they
would have lost that Baylor game the way they did in a dramatic fashion and lost the conference title, but they would have still made the playoff.
Yeah.
So is that a better a better turn of events than going to the bowl game or
I think it is. I think I think the more you have an opportunity to get hot, because you never know. I mean, I can look at anybody who has a playoff throughout anything, and all it matters is you're hot for the 4 or 5 games that you need to be.
Now, most of these teams will never be hot enough to go past like a round or two. Yeah. But if you do get like that, Coastal Carolina would have had a playoff appearance, and they get like that one time, and they get to knock off like Iowa or something.
Yeah.
That's a massive freaking deal.
Yeah.
And you get into the second round of the playoff and the money that comes with that and all that. So Oklahoma State had lost the one game to Iowa State in 2021, the example we were using. They turn around, they lose to Baylor legitimately on the 1-inch line to end the game. And then they turned around, they beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you rather have had happened? You lose the championship game and you go and you beat Notre Dame to win the Fiesta Bowl, and that's how your season ends, or you go into the playoff and then you maybe win or you maybe lose, but you made the playoff. Like what there's kind of there's a different feel there.
I guess I would be maybe more just amenable to anything that gets me a chance to win.
Well, and I don't know why I'm even asking, because it's just the way that it is. It's not like they have a choice in the matter, right?
Yeah.
So I guess like I said, it's probably a different topic of what was better, of you end with a Fiesta Bowl championship and that's just it, or you feel like you have a shot at the national title. How realistic that shot is or not is debatable. But yeah, I was just using them as an example of a team that would have been in the playoff otherwise. So maybe you wouldn't trade off Houston ending a magical season with a big bowl victory for a playoff berth only to get beaten the first round or something, but maybe you would. But the point of it is just looking at this, a lot of teams who are probably not going to make the playoff anytime soon would have made the playoff under these specifications over the last 10 years. And I guess what you're hoping for is on the other side of this, that is what it looks like still. And you have numerous teams all having their opportunity to get into that postseason tournament. So yeah, it's interesting to see how many other schools would be in the mix if the field was expanded for various other years. And you just wonder now, though, will it still be that diverse, or because of the push for AQs or the way the committee will view things, do they allow some of these teams into that mix? But yeah, there's some interesting, like Liberty would have made the playoff, Western Michigan would have made the playoff, Memphis, Tulane, Wazoo. Who else here? I think I mentioned Coastal. Northwestern would have been in the playoff twice under the 5-11. So yeah, just a different way of looking at things, although it's, not an exact science.
Yeah. I went back and looked at, by the way, out of curiosity, because I could not remember, but the FSU Houston Sugar Bowl, 38-24. I'm looking at Houston's roster.
Why are you acting like you don't remember that game all that well, FSU fan?
I was trying to remember who the quarterback that had to play in the game was. It was Sean McGuire.
Always a quarterback excuse in there, Garrett. Yeah. Always something with Florida State in their quarterback.
They got Everett Golston that year to be a transfer, and then he left before the bowl game because he wasn't that good. But they were still 10-3 that year, so I would do dirty, awful things for 10-3.
But that is a different topic, though. Like the way Houston ended that year, if you go back and say you win it, you win this big bowl game, you beat a big brand, and then you end it, and that's how you ended, versus the alternative where you would have gone into the college football playoff, and who knows, maybe you play like Ole Miss in round one or something. Which would you prefer? Ending on a loss? Because everybody ends on a loss other than the Natty Champ, right? So or at least if you're in the playoff. But yeah, that's a what if.
I gotta say, I don't know who they would have played in the next round had that happened at Houston, had that been a playoff game. But they had Greg Ward then.
And Ed Oliver.
Yeah, they had Greg Ward and Ed Oliver. So, I'm going to say they probably wouldn't have won the national title, but they would have I would think they may have even knocked a second team off, especially if you're knocking off Florida State like that still had guys from the 2013 team on it that were all like NFL dudes. Yeah, I think that you could have won into the game given that opportunity.
Yeah, you weren't going to win the Natty, but you were going to win maybe a couple games, and that would that have been bigger than winning?
Yeah.
The big bowl game at the end.
Now, Tom Herman was leaving anyway, but
that's true. That's
that was. I guess he left the next year, I think.
I don't remember.
Whenever it was, but yeah, Tom Herman was never going to stay with you forever. But if you have a coach who before you got you to 2 playoff wins, the candidate pool opens up for you too, because you don't have these. You have some coaches that aren't afraid of any situation. If they go into an interview and they know they have the financial backing, they know have the support of the president, all those things, they don't care where they go if it's a fit for them. But there is a ton of coaches who are like, well, nobody's ever won there, and I sure as hell don't want to be the guy who tries to figure it out. But if you have those things in there, I think it makes it attractive to more talent, player-wise and coach-wise, to come to you, because you do have, proof that, like, hey, it can be done here. Yeah. Art Briles proved it here. And I don't think they've really had, I don't think they'll ever have trouble, because Art Briles, Matt Rule, and Dave Aranda have all had success, in this conference, in this new college football, in the new
playoff, or if the 5-11, they all 3 would have been in the playoff.
Exactly.
Every single one of them. Yeah. So you can show that 3 head coaches in a decade span all could have made the playoff in this expanded system, and that's a selling point. Yeah.
That's a huge selling point. They're not going to have trouble. They're not like Art Briles was a really outside the box hire for Baylor, and they would never have to really have that kind of trouble again. Like where they're like, Jesus, what are we going to do? Who's going to come here after this run of failure between Grant Taft and now? They don't have to worry about that anymore. Let's take a break. When we come back, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, with us here. This is 365 Sports.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
Welcome back. John McClain, Pro Football Hall of Fame columnist, with us. And next week, he'll be later in the week because he's going to be in one of my favorite places in the world, the Florida Keys. So, John, I'm jealous that you're going to be down there. But first of all, Jim Marshall, one of the Purple People Leaders, passed away yesterday. What are your memories of the Purple People Leaders, Jim Marshall, and their contribution to the history of the NFL?
Well, it's interesting about Marshall because
He started 270 consecutive games, and that's the most for a position player other than Brett Favre. But he never got the recognition that two of his teammates on the Purple People Eaters defensive line, tackle Alan Page and Ian Carl Eller, that they received. It's unfortunate, but if you knew who Jim Marshall was, you thought about his nickname, Wrong Way Marshall. In his fourth year, I believe, he picked up the fumble, ran the wrong way, instead of running into the 49ers end zone. He went into his end zone and tossed the ball to the official, I think, and ended up being a safety, and they won the game. And he was a really good player, and I've always thought their nickname of the Purple People Eaters was one of the best ever, and of any unit, of any that played offense or defense. And back then they liked to stick people like the Rams had the fearsome foursome led by Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen. And you don't hear that anymore like you used to. Bud Grant, for about, 3 years in a row, Paul, taught us on the seniors committee of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and trying to help Marshall get in the Hall of Fame. But to me, he was a great player at times, but a really good player. He benefited from having Page and Eller on the same line. It's too bad they went to 4 Super Bowls. They lost them all. And but that fearsome foursome will live on. And the guy that was the next one was Gary Larson, I think, and another one took Larson's place, Doug Sullivan, but it was always Page and Eller and then Marshall. Very class act. 20 years he played, 19 with the Vikings. I believe that he started with the Browns in what turned out to be one of the worst trades in history. The Browns in 61, the Vikings inaugural year, traded him to Minnesota.
John, I'm sorry, I thought we lost you for a second there. It was just my headphones cut out for a sec. John, the NFL is in the offseason. You're in OTAs right now and all of that. There's a lot of, trade buzz around certain players like Trey Hendrickson. Jalen Ramsey's going to get traded. We'll see what happens with Kirk Cousins on down the line. One, where do you think benefits most by getting Jalen Ramsey? And two, does Trey Hendrickson get traded, or does Mike Brown melt on this and decide to give him a contract extension?
Well, supposedly they've offered him $28 million a year, and that would be about a $9 million a year raise. He's trying to get what Myles Garrett and Max Crosby got. Crosby got 33, Garrett got 34, Micah Parsons wants 35. Jerry Jones, as always, if he signed a guy, if they'd extended Parsons last year, they could have got him for 30. But as the Cowboys, Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones always screwed up and ended up paying more than they would have had to pay. In Hendrickson's case, he plays with one of the cheapest teams, which is weird saying that considering what they paid Joe Burrow and his receivers, including Jamar Chase. And but Higgins led the NFL in sacks, and their defense kept them out of the Super Bowl. And they changed their coordinator immediately after the season. And they're not going to reach their goal without Hendrickson and their best player. I believe they will get it worked out. If Jalen Ramsey was still a really good player, Miami wouldn't be trading him. He doesn't play like he used to. I think he's 30, 31 or 2, something like that. And they shouldn't trade him. But he's got a big cap hit, and it has to do with how much Miami will pay on his salary. That has a lot to do with a lot of things today. And I'll tell you something else, Paul, that's very strange. Only 2 second-round picks have signed. Now, they're in mini camps because you get insurance. And the reason is because the Texans gave their first pick in the second round, wide receiver, Jayden Higgins, a fully guaranteed contract. First time that's been done for a second-round pick. Then Cleveland turned around and gave the pick before the Texans, Corey Schlesinger, a linebacker, a fully guaranteed contract. Now, all the agents want fully guaranteed contracts for their second-round picks, and I don't blame them. That's the way the NFL works, is you wait for somebody to set a precedent, and the Texans did it. And the Texans' other second-round pick, offensive tackle Ariante Ursary, he is there at the OTAs every day, and he'll be in their mini camp, and he is yet to sign because he wants his guaranteed. And I don't understand how the general manager, Nick Caserio, could give Jaden Higgins a fully guaranteed contract and not Ariante Ursary.
John, C.J. Stroud's elbow. Anything to be worried about?
Well, it's his shoulder. They say he's got a sore shoulder. Now, most teams are, it's amazing to me. Teams used to say, yeah, he's got a sore shoulder and he got it this way and this is what we're doing and we'll let you know when he feels better, feels like throwing. And Ligo Ryans yesterday said, well, he has a tightness in his right shoulder. It's no big deal. He'll be ready, blah, blah, blah. When's he going to be ready? Is he going to be ready for the minicamp next week? He'll be ready when he's ready. Well, if he didn't throw during the OTAs, he's not going to throw at the minicamp next week. Now, if they get to training camp at the end of July and he still can't throw, that's going to be worrisome. But based on what they're saying, I don't think that's going to happen. And but until he's throwing full speed, people are going to be worried about it. And I watched him before practice, and he's tossing the ball around like a relief pitcher. Goes out, starts throwing easily before he starts throwing hard in the bullpen. And so they don't seem to be worried about it. But until he gets out there and throws regularly, it's going to be a constant topic of speculation.
John, how long do you think it'll take for the Washington Commanders to work out the new deal with Terry McLaurin?
I'm guessing it would be, guys, you'd think it'd be before the season starts. They've been good about money. You don't see them having financial problems. Maybe get it done by the start of camp, definitely by the start of the season, because they think they're a Super Bowl contender. No team in that division has repeated in 21 years, which means the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East, right?
Yeah.
No. It means that Washington will win it if history repeats. And so I think it's a good precedent to set. You overpay for your guys. It sends a message to your other players. It tells those other players you work hard. You be good about the culture, which is your attitude. You play your butt off. You're successful. You will be rewarded. And that's what Terry McLaurin has done.
I know we brought it up to you because you've got obviously Redskins or Commanders fandom. I'm never going to stop doing that. I'm never going to stop doing that, at least every once in a while. But obviously we've got some Commanders fans here on this show. When you talk to people just around the league, I know you're not probably asking about them specifically, but can you tell like the night and day difference, like it appears to the public the organization is in when you're talking to people about them behind the scenes? Does it also infiltrate those discussions of just how different the atmosphere, the ownership, and all that's come with that has been over the last year or so?
It's been unbelievable. It's kind of like the L.A. Clippers when Steve bought whatever the owner's name is out there.
Ballmer.
I forgot. The Microsoft guy bought him from Donald Sterling, one of the worst owners in the history of sports, any team, and he just turned it around immediately. Built his own building, became a cheerleader for the team, spent money on players. Everybody loves him now. And it's that way with that group that owns the team right now in Washington. And Josh Harris is the principal owner. They're going to get a new stadium. They're going to pay a big portion of the money. They're going to get it where our D.C. stadium, RFK Stadium was, which is in the district, not out in Landover, Maryland. And then the fact that they got good. And you guys know Dan Quinn's a great guy. Media loves him. Fans love him. The players love him. And he turned out to be a home run. Now they don't want Jaden Daniels to have a sophomore slump like C.J. Stroud did, but we all know why Stroud did, because he had the worst offensive line in the NFL, and they traded for Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. They drafted a right tackle in the first round. So they make it sure they've got a good offensive line for offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury, who I'm guessing after next season will get a second head coaching job.
John, the Steelers used to be one of the best organizations when it came to roster building in the NFL. What's changed that just on the fact that they are waiting on the weirdest guy potentially ever to play quarterback in the NFL ever to make a decision at the weirdest point in his life to come and play for them? Like, that alone is not very Steelers-like based on their history.
I think that they know they have a handshake deal with Aaron Rodgers, and they're not worried about it. He told them that, like he told Pat McAfee 3 months ago, he's got something going on in his life. Either he didn't say family member or close friend that's involved in something, which, you hear something like that, and you think they got a disease and could be dying. You don't know. And people thought he would have been there. And the truth is, he doesn't need an OTA. I think I've told you guys before, I have never, ever heard at the end of a season, whether a team that was successful or a failure, say, if we just done better in OTAs, we could have made the playoffs. Never heard a team win the Super Bowl and say, man, this started during the OTAs. We had great OTAs. OTAs are for mental, and Rodgers is a smart guy. I'm guessing, don't know. He's probably got a playbook, probably had Arthur Smith's playbook for months, and he'll be there for the start of training camp. And you know what a big deal that'll be whenever he shows up. He puts himself in the limelight. He obviously likes the drama and the attention, because once he gets there, we're going to hear about him every single day, just like we hear about him every single day now. And he's eating it up.
Yeah, he certainly loves that. John, the Astros, what's your status report right now?
Right now, they're a half game in first place over the Mariners. 3 of their 5 starting pitchers who began the season in the rotation are out. 2 of them done with Tommy John surgery. The other one, Spencer Getty, who was one of their key starters. He got hurt in the second week of the season, broke a thumb on his pitching end. He's not close to being back. And Framber Valdez has pitched great. And it's his last season. His contract's up. Jim Crane will not pay the big bucks to keep him. So people don't want to hear this. It's too early. Do they trade him at the trading deadline and get players? Or if you're in a battle with the Mariners for the division title, you think you have a chance to go to the World Series in the AL, which is not nearly as good as the NL, do you do it? But Valdez and Hunter Brown have been tremendous. And one of the greatest comeback stories I have ever seen is Lance McCullers Jr. I thought he'd never pitch again, multiple surgeries on his elbow. And last night he went up against Paul Skeens, best young pitcher in baseball, and he beat him. 6 innings, 2 hits, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk, got 2 home runs. They won 3-0. And McCullers, that was his first victory since September of 2022. And he is there at the right time, because their pitching staff, they should have a rail line on I-59 here going from Sugar Land to downtown, because a guy will make a start like Colton Gordon, then go back to Sugar Land, and another guy will come up, start, go back to Sugar Land, and they'll just pass each other in the night and wait. And for Alvarez being out since May 2nd and not having his bat in the lineup, it's amazing they have done as well as they've done. But people here right now are very fired up, because I thought they were going down the toilet.
Yeah, Christian Walker's not been good yet, but it's a long season, John. That one's the one that surprised me the most. I thought he would just rake in that ballpark.
He's averaged 31 home runs and 94 RBIs in his last 3 seasons. Arizona won a Gold Glove every year. His glove's been great. He's hit, I think he had a home run last night, but his average is like 210, and that's way below it. Yiner Diaz, their catcher, hit 299 last year, not even close. At least Altuve has a low average, lower than he's used to, but he has 9 home runs. And the biggest surprise is Jeremy Pena has been put in the leadoff spot, and he's been tremendous. And Jake Myers, a guy that never hit it close to his weight, is hitting like 280. And then Cam Smith, their rookie right fielder, has been a blessing.
Well, I mean, he's a wonderful angel from a wonderful place, John, so I'm not surprised.
Do they still play baseball in Arlington?
Not well right now. They can't all hit the same day.
Speaking of teams losing, can we have a moment of silence for the Longhorns getting swept by the University of Texas at San Antonio?
Yeah, John, there's been sorrow across all the land.
I do watch women's softball, and out second, Texas play tonight at 7, and that Tech pitcher they got for $1 million from Stanford, Kennedy, she is outstanding. I can't wait to watch that series.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. John, I'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the Keys.
Guys, thank you very much. I will be down at Key Largo interviewing Jimmy Johnson for our documentary. I'll tell you all about it when I get back.
John McClain with us. John, have a great trip. So there we go. Oh, all right. He didn't say Sikkim, so I was a little worried. Yeah. So let's see. Well, we got polls coming up. Right as we were talking to John, the SoCon, the Southern Conference, they have a working group about how to pick playoff teams. We will talk about that tomorrow. I don't think we can give it enough air before the end of the show, Craig, and I don't want to drown out a topic. So that will probably be one of the leadoff topics tomorrow. Just letting everybody in this room know so they can prepare for it. But now it's time for the top 5 and Andrew Valade's polls. This is 365 Sports.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into the Top 5. It's Wednesday, a wonderful day. Flag and Anthem is our sponsor. This shirt's from Flag and Anthem. If you would like to buy, you can buy this very shirt. If you want to be just like me, or you can cut your own path. Go to flagandanthem.com. Use our promo code 365sports. Next, Clemson candidates. Kenny Dillingham brought this up that, look, Clemson, Oregon, they kind of came out of nowhere in their eras and then, exploded and became teams that were regularly in the conversation. Clemson, of course, winning 2 national titles under Dabo Swinney. So who could be the next? Clemson or Oregon? I purposely left out the SEC and Big Ten here because I think there's a resourcing issue that would kind of take them out of the we built it from the ground up thing that only happens maybe in the Big 12 and ACC right now. So I picked Big 12 and SEC teams. And this is more of a Clemson thing because they actually won national titles. As you'll see, we may talk about Oregon later in the week. Number 5, Louisville. Why Louisville? They've got a coach that they love in Jeff Brom. They've got a coach that they love that's good at developing quarterbacks. They have a very passionate fan base. They really want to be good in football. They have a Heisman Trophy winner. You see him here, Lamar Jackson. All of that. So they have some pretty good history. They've just never been able to break through. So can they break through in the ACC? Yeah, I think they can. I think that conference, much like the Big 12, outside of 1 or 2 teams, is usually wide open. And can they take those steps forward with the backing and fan support they have? I think that they can. But it bears watching. Can you finally get over the top, get out of your own way, and really do it? They've got a really good athletic department ahead of their athletic department right now. Number 4, SMU. Why SMU? Same thing. Passion. Money. My God, they have money. They really want to be back there. And they'll do what it takes to keep their staff intact. Rhett Lashley's name's going to get brought up for a bunch of jobs. If I'm him, it better be LSU or Alabama or Ohio State or something before I even take the call. Because if it's not one of those, SMU is going to give me everything I need and stay out of my way. And because of that, and because of his acumen and the ability to recruit in a hotbed state like Texas, SMU could very much do that now that all the walls have been taken out from in front of them. Number 3, BYU. Kind of the same thing. Look, they've got a coach they believe in Kalani Sitake, a guy that they don't want to go anywhere, that's not going to go anywhere on his own. He is where he wants to be. And if you've seen how much money they're pumping into basketball, and then now we'll pump into football, you can see where they can build. And they're in a conference that's wide open. They have the resources to do pretty much what they want to do. Number 2, Texas Tech. Again, we talk about resources, passionate fan bases, and a program in place to keep stability. If they can break through and contend for the Big 12 this year, this is a team that once they get a taste of success, I don't think they're going to let it go. But they have to get there first. But again, it's going to come out of nowhere for most of the country. But if you see what Texas Tech's been doing, it should pay off in some conference championships and contending in the playoff. It absolutely should. Again, we'll see. This is a program that has never gotten to those heights, but is trying as hard as it ever has right now. And number 1, well, I mean, since he brought it up, it might as well be Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State. Of all the teams I've mentioned, they have everything that you need. A major metropolitan area whose high school football is improving by the year. So you've got good high school football in your area. It's easy to go to California and Texas and get players who want to come to PHX and play college sports. The campus is great. The academics have improved greatly over the last quarter century, and nobody has cared as much about this program getting better than Kenny Dillingham has in probably 40 years. Even though they've had some really good teams in that time, I can tell you nobody's probably cared as much because Kenny Dillingham is an alum. They could be really consistent. You could have a Jake the Snake all the time as long as he stays. Sam Levitt, year 1 under Kenny Dillingham was fantastic. He's a quarterback guru. He is someone, if he plants his roots at home in Phoenix and
doesn't want to leave, this program can really be built to something. Most wasted resources of any athletic program in the country for the longest time, Arizona State, they're finally understanding, hey, we've got some staying power and we've got some juice, and we're going to use it. Kenny Dillingham, number one. Well, that's going to do it. Andrew Valade, kick me over a pole. Pole, don't kick me and then I'll fall over a pole. Kick me the poles. I don't know. That was dumb. I'm going to read them now.
All right, Garrett, what do we got? What have the people said today? First one, do you agree with Ryan Day that the Big Ten deserves 4 CFP spots overwhelmingly? Out of 215 votes, 72% says no, it should be more balanced. Then 15% said maybe, but 4 seems excessive. And 13%, yes, they've earned it. See, that's the problem, though. But, have they? In an AQ, do you know if they've earned it or not?
I don't know. He just said, we're the Big Ten. We've added new schools. And he didn't really make a compelling argument. He just said, basically, we're the Big Ten. We've added these new schools. We won the last 2 titles. We deserve it. That was his argument was that. And so there is some merit to the argument about the titles and I guess being the Big Ten to some extent. But, yeah, I do think there's enough of a variance year to year that to just bank on them always having 4 worthy teams, you can make an argument for it. You can also make an argument against it. And so, I think it should be a bit more balanced in terms of these 3 options. I definitely don't think they just automatically earned it. As far as actually earning it, I don't mean earning by just being a name. And so, 4 seems a little excessive. So, I'd go number 3 here.
Yeah. Okay. Next poll. Which team benefited more from the Paul George trade saga? The Thunder. Out of 86 votes, 58%. I think we know where our audience lies on their give a damn. The Pacers at 14%. Neither team, 9%. It's a win-win at 19%. Look, the Thunder got so many draft picks and an MVP out of it, but the Pacers wound up turning it into their own thing. It's so strange that Paul George leaving both these teams has led them here with the players they were able to acquire.
Yeah, there's a whole article on ESPN about how to build a championship team is to trade Paul George as far as it being step number 1. So, they do have that unique tie-in, these 2 teams playing in the finals, and I don't know what kind of a rating it's going to draw. I don't care because I'm not a TV executive, but I know some people do care. So this is probably not the most appetizing finals, but I think it'll be interesting to see either one of them raise the trophy at the end. Obviously, OKC has been a very good franchise for a long time. Indiana's had their moments as well. So there's that newness factor there, but definitely not the biggest markets. So hopefully it'll be entertaining enough to pull in the casuals who, aren't going to watch because of the market size, the lack of interest in these teams or whatever. But I know there's been a lot of debate about that. I just hope it's fun. I think OKC and Indiana both feel great about their decisions. And I would expect we would lean a little bit more OKC, but it's pretty handily in their favor there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that series starts tomorrow night. Let's see. I'm trying to think of tomorrow on the show. I've already gotten commitments from Christy Dosh, and she's got a new book about the modern college athlete navigating NIL, the transfer portal, and all of that. Scott Dochterman of The Athletic on the genesis of the Big Ten's AQ format and why that came about. We'll also have Craig Smokes Off the Radar, Ohio State schedule, which I think has more wins on it than Northwestern's, Craig. I'd say so. I'm just going to throw that out there. I feel confident, even if Ohio State does not defend their title, that they will definitively have more wins than Northwestern. And if I am wrong, man, would that be something?
Well, then the Big Ten will need 6 automatic qualifiers if that were the case.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. They'll have to get half the field because that would mean that Northwestern is super, super good. Also, coming up on Friday, Mark Schipper, Fifth Down College Football, and Levi Weaver of The Athletic. I thought we'd talk a little Major League Baseball. He just does a great job about it, and just say we're almost to the middle part of the season. Just a little quick recap. We like to keep it fresh, move on through other topics. And I love baseball. Craig loves baseball. Garrett's now a Pirates fan because of Paul Skeens, which he's wearing his Paul Skeens gear today, even though Lance McCullers Jr. shut the door on him last night.
It happens to the best of them, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw somebody say Paul Skeens is going to be like 4-14 with a 1.37 ERA and win the Cy Young, while the Pirates don't even make the playoffs. It's kind of the situation. They're already talking about him going to the Yankees and Dodgers. He's been in the league for less than 2 years. I mean, that's what the overall media does, though, man. We see it every time in basketball. He needs to go to the Lakers. He needs to go to the Celtics. He needs to go to the Knicks. And baseball, they're already beating the drum for the Yankees or Dodgers, as they do and have done for years and years and years and years now. That's where I really first started to notice the market biases, was the constant hammering home of the Yankees, the Yankees, the Yankees, and then eventually the Lakers, and so on and so forth. But the Paul Skeens Pittsburgh marriage has barely even made it over a year, and they're already trying to trade him away. So
yeah. Absolutely. Pittsburgh, here's the problem. They have one of the best young pitchers in baseball. They've got a couple more coming up through that are pretty good. One of them, Braxton Ashcraft, is from our backyard here in Robinson, Texas. They've gotten a start, and they feel really good about him. But they also have O'Neal Cruz, who's a 6'7" center fielder that leads the league in steals and hits just missiles out of the stadium. So if they can build around that, I mean, the problem is that, they don't not all these teams have engaged owners. One of the things I'm looking forward to talking to Levi about is Miami and Colorado. Their owners just don't care. I mean, they don't care at all. At least Jerry Reinsdorf for the White Sox, and that team might be up for sale. He cares. He's maybe too old to care as much anymore. But the Colorado, you fire the manager, but you give him nothing. Hey, you can't put a good lineup together. I can only cook with the ingredients you give me, and you've just given me a bunch of Vienna sausages in a can and told me to make creme brulee. It doesn't work that way. You don't make creme brulee out of that. So anyway, we'll talk about that with Levi on Friday. That's going to do it for us. We will see you tomorrow. Please check out 365 Sports Tonight if you are in the greater Waco viewing area. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks to everybody who hopped in today. This 365 Sports. Have a good one.